Hello and welcome to Here in LA, Westwood Edition. Today we talk with Sean Beckner Carmichael and William Film the Police Good, two local independent journalists and Twitter superstars who were at UCLA several weeks ago filming the protest there day after day, night after night, through all the gas and violence and loud noises. They watched as the cops dragged their feet and did nothing one night for 4 hours as counter-protesters attacked students with sticks and weapons and explosives. They documented how none of the violent men were able to breach the students' encampment. Then, the next night, they watched at how the police staged for 10 hours, again doing nothing until 3 a.m. when they finally decided, all right, and got the approval to break up the situation, scatter the offenders while tearing down the encampment. Then a few weeks ago, there was another protest scheduled for 6 a.m. Both Sean and William arrived early, began filming, and were promptly arrested by the UCLA police for what crime? Doing journalism? No, they were accused of conspiracy for burglary despite identifying themselves as journalists, despite clearly just filming these students being arrested, despite Sean even showing his press credentials. But wonderfully, both men were able to tweet and, in Will's case, live stream a half hour of his detainment. But they still had to spend hours and hours illegally detained in jail in Van Nuys. Yes, the Valley. Today, the UC president is testifying in Congress about the bungling of these protests and the failure of the chief of the UC police, who has since been temporarily reassigned, even though he should have just been fired when he could. So get comfortable. 2 hours of Sean and Will talking to me about protests, UCLA, the LAPD, the UCPD, and what to bring Sean the next time he gets arrested for simply performing journalism here in LA. Hey everybody, we are here in beautiful Little Armenia with two very brave, courageous reporters. We've got Sean Becker Carmichael.
Beckner Carmichael.
No, I've changed your name now.
Oh, shit. All right.
How would you like to be assigned?
Sean Beckner Carmichael is my name.
Did we get into why the hyphen?
Yeah, so as far as I can tell, it's Gaelic for my mom and my dad didn't get along so well.
Is your mom kind of like a feminist type person?
Yeah, my mom is absolutely a feminist. My mom actually one time was part of the second co-educational boot camp in the United States. And taught me a lot. My mom would always tell me that, being a feminist is being a human being, that kind of thing.
I'm with her on that.
She raised me right.
And this is in Wisconsin?
Mostly Wisconsin. Lived a little bit in Colorado, over in Castle Rock. A little bit I was born actually in South Carolina, Charleston Naval. And
I hope you still vote over there.
I do not vote over there. No, I vote over here.
It's worthless.
Well, I mean, you still have city elections and things like that.
Okay.
State elections, that sort of thing.
So Rick Caruso can count on your vote next time.
Well, we'll see.
And then we've got Mr. William Film the Police Good. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. So we are here to talk to you two gentlemen because you were at both of the big campuses a little bit of last month, leading into this month, and then you got arrested at UCLA. So for some reason, like, news just kind of like blips and like disappears. And I feel like these college campus protestings and the arrests it was a big deal, but then it kind of like died off, which I think is what the cops really wanted it to happen. But you guys aren't going to let it die, right?
Yeah, I don't think it died off at all.
Oh, good.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's still at least one campus encampment going on in Los Angeles right now, over at Cal State Los Angeles. I have not had a chance to visit it.
Good for them.
I saw pictures. It looks like they've got barricades. It looks actually yesterday, from what I heard here, the barricades have actually expanded.
So let's talk about UCLA, because, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and we could talk about SC a little bit too, but because you guys got arrested at UCLA, I think that's a bigger deal. Mr. Good did not get arrested. You were only detained for your entire day.
I was arrested. Listen, I'm not going to accept, the definition of anything else other than that. I wasn't booked, but I was arrested.
Where do you want to start this story?
I think if we're talking specifically about UCLA, the camp went up, I believe, on the 25th of April. Over around Rice Hall. The first day, it was pretty much just a couple tents. William, how many tents would you say there were?
Couple dozen.
These are the pro-Palestinian tents.
Yeah, I think, for lack of a better term, I mean, language is always important, so you want to be as descriptive as is possible without letting something slip through the cracks. So,
and so I call them that because I feel like at all these college campuses, those are the people who have these tents, the tents are there to what? Draw attention to the fact that they don't like that the school is somehow tied to all of this business?
So every encampment has slightly different demands. Every encampment is going to tell you something slightly different. The main thing that seems to tie them all together, specifically with the college campuses, is this idea of divestment. So many universities spend money or spend resources or spend time or have agreements or arrangements with the state of Israel. The pro-Palestinian or Gaza Solidarity or however you want to define them, protesters, that's the main thing that you see through all of them is this idea of divestment from Israel. So, for instance, a lot of colleges will have a student exchange program, or in some of them they have investments specifically tied up in the state of Israel, and some of them, might be doing, who knows, archaeological work in Israel.
They want that to shut down too until this is settled?
Well, I think right now, if you're talking about Gaza, I don't think that there's any archaeological work being done there.
What they want is divestment. They want this war to come to an end. That's what they want.
And these colleges are somehow have their hands in the war?
They're invested in Israel. They're invested in Israel. They want them to divest. That's their major ask. There are other asks, but that's their major ask.
Okay. And have the colleges responded to these protesters?
They have not. Listen, they've done this. We saw this decades ago when they demanded divestment from South Africa.
Right.
And they did. That's what they want now.
Oh.
It's not complicated. We don't have to make this more complicated about ways or whatever.
Great.
They want divestment. They want this war to come to an end. They want attention to be brought to the war. There is only but so much these kids can do. This war is happening on the other end of the world. They have limited things at their disposal that they can do. They're doing the only thing they can really do.
What I saw on the BBC while you guys were being gassed, one of these nights out there, I saw an interview from a young person in Britain saying that the kids in Europe are inspired by what the students in the United States are doing. Have you guys seen any of these types of responses?
I haven't. I quite honestly.
You've been busy.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of us, we've kind of been in the middle of it. We've been there. We are at the UCLA nearly every night.
Nearly every night, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're there filming the stuff, gathering information. We don't have a chance to really go and digest the information everybody else is seeing.
Right. Mr. Film the Police, when do you want to start the timeline?
I think if you're going to start the timeline, you start the timeline on the 25th, the first day of the encampment.
Okay. Were you guys there on the 25th?
I was.
And what did you see?
It was, I would not say that it was a charged atmosphere in any way.
Okay. Why
Until it was for a little bit.
Why did you go on that day, the 25th?
I wanted to document the encampment.
Did you think that the cops were going to mess with them on that first day?
No, not at all. What was clear immediately is that they had set up their boundaries, right, which still allowed access to the sidewalk so you could walk completely around the encampment. And while we were there, I was watching them bring in contractors, bring in gates.
The university.
The school hired these people to bring gates for that encampment. So I did not think the police were going to be involved because the school was literally setting up the sort of the boundaries of the encampment.
And that's why a lot of people, including myself on Twitter, were saying UCLA is doing it right, USC is doing it wrong.
I think Sean and I talked about this many times leading up, for I would say from the 25th till about the 30th. We thought that they were doing a good job, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, up until the 30th, I was mostly impressed by how well, I guess what you would call a hands-off approach seemed to be working.
Because it's just kids in tents in a little grassy knoll. You could walk around them if you wanted.
Yes.
They weren't attacking anybody.
No.
As far as I know, yes, no. Absolutely.
Great. When did conflict begin at UCLA?
Immediately.
On that night, the counter-protesters, we'll call them. Do you want to call them something else?
We'll call them counter-protesters.
Okay.
I think that's accurate.
They started doing what to the kids in the tents?
They came over to the area by the steps, kind of took over the area. We're calling them rapists, terrorists, things like that. The people in the encampment were mostly ignoring them, keeping their backs turned. They had set up individual signs around the edge of the encampment. The counter-protesters were ripping off some of the protest signs. They were not engaging in any way.
Let's talk about who these counter-protesters are.
Each day it's different.
Oh, really?
Yes, this is not the same people.
There's a through line for the most part that you can see. Some of the same people are returning and things like that. But each day, you noticed a few things. One, the intensity of the counter protests raised dramatically every single day.
They were pissed.
Yeah, I mean,
or antagonistic.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, day one there was some minor scuffles. Day two there was a lot of yelling and ripping off of posters and a little bit of spitting, things like that. And then it increases every single day until you have that attack on Tuesday, which is sort of a full-on assault on the encampment with many people assaulted.
Tuesday was April 30th, if my notes are correct.
That sounds correct. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Let's go back to the 25th. 25th, there were a lot of just women with their kids, families, and some people who came there looking for problems. And they were there, I would say most of the counter-protesters were there to be peaceful, with some antagonistic younger bullies mixed in. After that day, 25th, and you can go forward, I guess it would be, I think there were some scuffles again the next day. I think you got to the point where it was on the 28th, is that the Sunday, where then you started seeing some fighting going on. People jumping over, somebody jumped over my shoulder to throw punches. There were punches thrown all throughout. And to me, that day was a big day because I think things really sort of changed that day. There were a lot of people out there. It seemed like, you can tell me, Sean, I would say 1,000 people out there?
On Sunday, I think, about 1,000. It's always tough whenever you get to a number above 250 at the end of the day, unless you're...
1,000 people, how many cops?
Not that many. 10, maybe.
Yeah. UC cops, mostly?
Mostly UC cops.
And private security.
Private security. There were a few LAPD officers there and an LAPD captain as well.
The private security, are these the private security that the LA Times took a picture of on the 30th? Standing on the stairs, not doing anything, black jackets.
So there were two private security companies.
Yeah. Okay.
There was CSC, who handled most of the things. I think after Sunday,
Sunday.
Please fact check that. You had another private security company called Apex. So
they came on Sunday.
Because I will say this, leading up to the 30th, I felt like the campus security and the private security were in the middle of the scrum, kind of trying to keep people away. But again, I'm only watching it at home.
I would actually say the people who actually did the most to prevent things from getting out of control were members from both sides who were sort of self-policing.
Cool-headed people on both sides saying, let's not do this?
I don't know. No, actually not even cool-headed people. One guy who was in the middle of everything, and one minute he wanted to fight, but he would calm things down. No.
So unreliable referee kind of a guy.
Even if you're trying to prevent fights, when you're surrounded by 100 people who all have energy, it's hard not to have that energy affect you.
Yeah.
And also, look, I mean, regardless of anybody's opinions on the guy, I'm sure he's passionate for his side.
Yes.
Right.
I always say one of the most important things when you're covering any movement, right, is to understand that for the most part, people have deeply held beliefs, and whether or not what they believe is legitimate, it is legitimately held.
Right.
I think overall, looking at his actions, I think he helped keep things from getting out of control.
He's a
But
big guy. I'm glad he didn't fight.
it was clear that day going forward, things were going to get violent. It's only going to get worse.
If you saw that, do you think that the chancellor of UCLA saw that?
This was actually mentioned in, I believe, in a report where they talked about the head of the UCLA PD was tasked with making sure things didn't get out of control. And I'm going to tell you right there, that day, things got out of control. And it was clear what was coming next. Each day, things were getting progressively worse, more violent each day.
Right.
I remember texting friends, I think my mom, and I think texting William every single day. I remember being like, yeah, this isn't good. Like, this is getting worse.
Because the cops weren't in there doing their jobs?
No, because this is pro-Israel versus pro-Palestine.
Right.
Think of the fighting that's been going on overseas, and now it's happening here.
Yes.
So that's why.
But again, if I'm the police, I see that it's
I don't blame the police for not getting involved that day.
You don't?
No, I don't, because it didn't reach the point where they had to get involved. But from that day forward, they should have known better. We knew what was coming next. Everybody out there knew what was coming next. It was going to get worse. And failing to prepare for that is an absolute failure on so many different departments' part. Obviously the UCLA PD, but also the LAPD. Even though you have to wait, they have to wait to be asked, they should have prepared.
Right.
And so going on to the next day, after that day, it was clear things were going to get worse. That day, Sean and I both went there. We were in different angles. I was inside the encampment. I got a pass to go inside the encampment and spend a few hours inside. And Sean was outside.
How did you get inside? What'd you do?
Had somebody who was inside the camp bring me in there.
You were a lovable man, and people. I think people know that you are who you.
I was invited there for a reason.
Right.
That's not about lovable or anything. I was invited there for a specific reason, and I can't.
Okay,
get into it.
fine. So you're inside. You're where the tents were.
Yeah.
Okay. And where were you, Sean?
So I spent most of the night, to be honest with you, kind of walking around, looking for something to film. I mean, and I think that says something that, I'm a busy guy. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, I have a full-time job plus outside of journalism.
Yeah.
The fact that I was so convinced that something wild was going to happen that I left my job to walk around a campus knowing that I would get something speaks to that.
So 29th, what was there blood on the 29th? Was there?
There was about to be.
Okay.
It was pretty close.
The police had to step in. So on that night, when I was inside the encampment, things were I was there for documenting something that I was there to document.
Yeah.
When all hell started breaking loose a little bit. The counter-protesters tried storming inside the front gate of the encampment.
Yeah.
Which caused the people in the encampment to get their mobile barriers and block them from coming in. And there was a confrontation at the front gate. I captured one side, Sean captured the other side, and it definitely was physical. Were there assaults? I don't know. I think there was at least one assault.
What was going on inside the encampment? Were people just intent praying? Were they freaking out? Were they? Because it was men and women in there, right?
Yeah, listen, I'll be honest with you. When I was inside there, they were doing meetings and stuff like that, right? My first thought were these kids, if they were to go up against either the police or the counter-protesters, are going to get their ass kicked.
Because they're not fighters.
These are not. These are kids. I'm looking at them. And listen, I will say this now. Knowing what I know now, people will say, most of these people inside the encampment are not students. I disagree with that. I don't know what percentage. I don't know if it's 60, 70, 80%, but the bulk were students.
They seem young.
Yeah. Now, some may not even go to UCLA, though.
Right.
It's hard to say, but I think actually most do. I did not think that these were fighters who have ever been in a situation with, a group of people storming the encampment, trying to inflict harm. I thought they wouldn't be able to survive it. I think they did a fairly good job that night. Well, they did. They stopped them from getting inside. But I think Sean and I both realized by the end of the night, the next night was going to be hell.
Well, and to be clear, I mean, I heard them say they were coming back the next night. I mean, they
Right.
said that around the police officers.
Yeah.
So
Oh, really?
We'll be back.
we'll be back. Yeah. The protest on Sunday, it's really important. It wasn't just, your classic MAGA types. There were also, people that I'm really familiar with over the course of my career, right? People
Instigators.
Whatever you want to call them, instigators. I'm sure the people in the encampment would call them chuds.
Okay.
People who are essentially right-wing brawlers, right? They go to events like this specifically for the purposes of brawling.
The type of people who went to Glendale for the school protest?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the people that went 2 of those days is his name is Narek Palyan, and he, this is not a guy that's just a right-wing guy. This is a guy who regularly posts neo-Nazi memes on his social media. He's been photographed giving Nazi salutes. He consistently brings up my Jewish heritage. And I remember seeing him and kind of being like, what side are you on?
Right.
Here? Right.
He's on the pro-Israel side
Well,
at UCLA?
ostensibly, I think
No,
he was.
He's just there to fight.
Well, I think he just supports whoever
Genocide.
genocide in general, possibly. I didn't get a chance to ask him because I was genuinely curious, and I was like, hey, like,
Listen, I was talking to another journalist when I was out there, and I'm like, I was amazed because he was arguing with the pro-Palestine side. Now, I already knew his views on the Jews. I interviewed him back in 2020. I have on recording of him blaming the Jews for what's going on in Armenia, and they're the problems with whatever.
Yeah.
And I was looking, I'm like, well, whose side is he on? I asked the other reporter, and he says, he's just pro-genocide. And so here we are. But, I got to say, having him at that event and having, Sean will tell you, he's the one who actually broke this with the JDL flag.
yeah. So the JDL is also known as the Jewish Defense League. They are they were formally recognized by the United States as a terrorist group. In 2022, their terrorist group status was removed by President Biden, which was quite controversial amongst pro-Palestinian groups.
Why did Biden do this?
You'd have to ask him.
What's your guess?
I think because he wanted to make certain parts of his donor base and certain parts of the pro-Israel lobby and things like that. I think he wanted to make them happy, and also so the JDL for the most part has been broken up for about 6 to 7 years at minimum. But here's the thing: this is really important. The Jewish Defense League has instituted bombings. They've assassinated people. They've murdered people. They've been caught by the FBI doing plots to do mosque bombings. They are not good guys, right? This is not one of those situations where you see, a flag and you're like, oh, those guys suck. They vote for this social group or this social group. These are people who are abjectly terrorists. Their views on anti-Semitism is essentially, anything even remotely critical of the state of Israel is not just anti-Semitic, but must be fought and must be dangerously put down. Their leader was assassinated in Israel by an Egyptian agent. When Kahan was in Israel, he was lobbying Israel to not just, make Gaza 100% an Israeli state, but he was lobbying for forced expulsion, forced death, and slavery of all Palestinians.
Wow.
He was lobbying for what he called the Greater Israel by force, which would have taken over significant parts of neighboring countries like Syria, Lebanon. This is a guy who was abjectly dangerous to the world order, right? To the concept of peace. And even Israel eventually essentially said he was too racist and couldn't run anymore.
So you saw that dude's flag at UCLA?
Yeah, so I saw the JDL's flag one night. I believe it was the second night of the encampment.
With the counter-protesters?
With the counter-protesters, yeah. I also saw it on Sunday, which was the larger rally. I actually had a chance to interview him, and more to come on him.
Really?
But by the time this drops, there might be more information.
Did other people recognize that flag?
I think there were one or two that did online. I don't know if anyone did. Obviously there's a lot of people there. I can't poll every single person, but
I just want to know if it's a recognizable, because I wouldn't know it.
So here's the thing: is it looks very similar to an Israeli flag. It has the same colors. The difference is it essentially has a fist rather than the Star of David.
Okay.
And when you're seeing a lot of Israeli flags, it does kind of sort of blend in.
Okay.
And yeah, it's scary and it's concerning, and this is a group that's not just instituted plots, but instituted plots here in Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No, listen, they did this out in Orange County where they assassinated a person decades ago. They were attempting to blow up a mosque in Torrance. These guys all went to jail.
So again,
listen. They all went to jail and spent decades in jail. Sean, where are they at now?
A lot of them have been released recently. Yes.
So that's why it's important. So you have this flag showing up as an event, and you have these people who are now back in the community. Now, do we know if any of them were there at the event? I don't know. But my point is that influence is now out there.
Yeah.
And then we start seeing this extremism at the encampments.
Reality is, it's been my experience that, and I can really only speak to LAPD, but their knowledge of hate groups and terrorist groups and things like that is in my experience, been shockingly low.
Really? This goes to William's point. They don't know the law. They don't know who the people are. And they don't even know this, which is shocking to me.
And this is just one of the many things that were problematic in their response. Yes, they should have recognized that flag. There are a lot of red flags out there. We saw all the red flags.
Give me another red flag that we haven't talked about yet.
This is the fighting.
So when they saw fighting, what should they have done?
There were rumbles all the time. Oh, listen, when they saw the fighting going on, they should have said, this is going to get worse tomorrow night.
Yes.
We saw it happen. Like, again, each night it got worse. We recognized what was coming next. I had my phones charged up ready early in the morning because I knew what was going to come that night.
Yeah.
Everyone knew what was coming.
Let's just take a little detour real quick. Because I was concerned about you, William, on a number of counts. You didn't have a mask on. I didn't know where you were. Or else I probably would have been worried about you too, Sean.
Oh, I got off of work. I was wearing a suit.
Were you really like this? You were dressed nicely?
Almost exactly like this. Yeah.
Wow. So you didn't have
I think this jacket I was wearing, because I remember today I
Did it smell bad
shook
later?
it a little bit, and I sneezed because there was still a little bit of...
A little tear gas, a little spicy?
Yeah.
You didn't have a gas mask. Do you have a gas mask?
No, I'm not going to wear that out there.
Do you think that that's just not cool?
You got to understand, you're out there filming tons of people.
Yeah.
They kind of need to see who you are, or else they're not going to trust you. So if I'm walking around trying to get access to an encampment or wherever else, and I have a gas mask on, they're not going to trust me. They're going to who is this person?
Do I need to get you a Film the Police hoodie?
No, I would never. No.
You wouldn't wear it? You'd wear a El Taco one, but not your own brand?
It's not important.
Okay, I'll get you here in LA hoodie. Nobody knows what that is. Okay, so I was worried about that.
Hold on. Can I have a hoodie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
You can understand, like,
I just want a free
when
hoodie.
you're
That's
going
all
through
I
these
want.
situations,
Yeah.
and you're filming, right?
Yeah.
We come from a time 3 years ago, while this was happening, you would get attacked for filming. You were not to film anybody. Then we've reached a point now where we can film, but both sides do not trust us, and we are in the middle. So we can't just maneuver in there in a way that looks like we are some like undercover or some, somebody who may be an op to one side or the other. You kind of have to present yourself in a certain way.
gotta be
So,
cool.
Listen, yeah. I mean, there are guys there with gas masks, but I kind of,
Did Reuters have the gas masks?
No.
Really?
None of the main people. Did you see any gas masks by the main?
There was, I think he works for AP. One guy I know had brought a gas mask, but also he showed up later, so I think he already knew what was up. I have a gas mask. I bring it to some things. My thing is always, number one, I just wasn't able really to rally my stuff together quick enough because I already knew, but I had to like jump out of my car and get there as quick as possible.
Yes.
There's also, me and William have slightly different, concerns and roles, but like my thing is I think it's important whenever possible for people to know who a reporter is, right?
Yes.
Put a name to a face. It can also it diffuses, not always, maybe not even most of the time, but it can diffuse a situation to look at someone in the eyes, right?
Yes.
And for me to be able to say, look, like I'm just doing my job. Oftentimes, I'll have people screaming like, "We know who you are," and I'm always like, "Well, yeah, it says it on the thing around my neck. It's on my Twitter account. Like, I'm not trying to lie about who I am. I'm pretty clear about that."
Did you have food? Because I was worried about his food situation.
What's funny is I had a really lovely I had a bowl of fried rice with a little bit of ribeye and.
But you were out there for 8 hours. You didn't.
Oh,
get
that
hungry?
day.
Yeah.
Oh. That day I ate some black cod with a soy reduction and a little bit of bok choy.
I shouldn't ask a sommelier if he had food.
Yeah.
You know exactly what kind of food.
I eat okay.
What about water?
You're not thinking about that. You're not thinking. Come on now. You are thinking, am I going to hit with this brick that's coming overhead, this lock? I'm not joking around. There are things flying around just nonstop, and we're sitting right in the middle of it. That's what you're thinking about.
Before they had, on the 30th, before the counter-protesters had sort of launched themselves into the area around the barricade, I saw about 20 of them sexually harass a woman who yelled...
20?
About 20. She yelled Free Palestine at them, and then the group of 20 followed her and hurled, sexual remarks, sexual threats, and, things of that nature, right? I know you have a podcast and you'd like to continue to be on all platforms, so we'll just leave it at that.
No,
but
what are you gonna say?
this is ostensibly a student, and even if not a student, this is on campus. You have 20 men,
Right.
yelling sexual remarks,
Yes.
at a woman. Now, regardless of if you disagree with her, regardless of how passionately you disagree with someone, threatening things of a sexual nature towards a woman on a college campus is not okay, right? And is a real concern. And I keep hearing this argument that certain people feel unsafe here and there, and I just think that it's so important to mention that some of the same people who got on potentially whined on Dr. Phil about how they feel unsafe. Potentially those might have been the same people, right?
Right.
I
think I saw this woman. She was remarkably tough in the face of all of this. Is this the woman you saw too?
So I filmed her from afar. I didn't see much.
She didn't seem to be backing down. She didn't seem to be like.
She
terrified.
walked away slowly.
Right.
Yeah, and she had one person with her.
Right.
But
So courageous.
yeah, well, at the end of the day, she didn't have a choice, right? You're taking away somebody's autonomy, right? You're making someone choose whether to stand there and be degraded or to walk away and look like a coward, right? And that's not a fair place to put someone in.
To clarify, what this was early morning 30th. This was sort of like...
This was like right before they stormed the barricade,
Now, think about that. I can't stress it enough, like Sean said, right? You keep on hearing about certain groups feeling unsafe on campus, and yet all she said was free Palestine, and then she was treated in that way. So I think it's very important. He already said it. I just want to stress that.
Yeah. Some people online were saying the reason the cops didn't step in on those days was because they wanted these pro-Palestinian people to get their ass kicked.
Who knows?
Is that a silly belief?
We don't have any. I can honestly say.
I have no proof of that.
Yeah. Listen, there are a lot of reasons that the cops could have refused to step in. I have no idea why.
Okay, so most of the time when you film the police, it seems like on Hollywood Boulevard, they'll step in for anything.
Listen, there's filming the police when you have police stops, and then there's filming police when you have protests.
Right.
I'm here to tell you, for the last 4 years, the tons of protests that I have been at, the cops always over-prepare. You usually have too many cops there before the protest begins, staging somewhere. What we saw happen on May 30th, after night after night after night of things becoming progressively more violent, and you knew it was going to reach that breaking point, and then you had that attack that night. And it took nearly an hour for the first cops to show up, and they didn't get out of their car, and they took off. And then 4 hours and 20 minutes later or whatever is when when the cops finally step in. That was just a failure on so many different levels.
But doesn't that lead into that theory that the cops wanted there to be violence there?
I have no answers.
Do you have a guess?
I have no guess. I couldn't tell you. I'll be honest.
Sean?
I'm stumped by this.
So here's the thing.
Which, by the way, is shocking because I feel like if anybody knows the LAPD, it's you.
This isn't the LAPD.
But the LAPD could have. I mean, it's still LA.
Listen. Here's the thing, right? The UCLA technically has to ask for LAPD's help.
Right.
They didn't. They didn't for hours. But that doesn't absolve the LAPD. The LAPD, they have each individual morning, they get their awareness report, situational awareness report. And I guarantee that situational awareness report said there's going to be increased protest. There was violence the night before, and they should have prepared. Yeah. We've been at protests years ago when UCLA had a little mini riot over a basketball game, and the cops were prepared. They had them staging at the federal building on Wilshire. They didn't do any of that this time.
They had like 2 chairs on fire, and then I saw like 100 cops show up.
Yeah, on horses, everything. Mm-hmm. And this time was different. Mm-hmm. And so, listen, I don't have the answers. Listen, I will say this, though. For 4 hours and 20 minutes, none of the attackers got inside that encampment. Those kids fended them off, and they were punished. Some had broken bones, and they were hurt, lacerations and all that. No one got inside, and never once did I hear them complain, where are the cops at?
Yeah.
Certainly I heard that a lot from people on the outskirts.
Oh, yeah.
People that were watching. I mean, so one of the interesting things is there's a few moments that I have that I always go back to. One was when I got there, I saw one University of California security guy watching from 2 blocks away, and I have never seen anyone look more confused about what they're supposed to do than that lone guy in a vest, right?
Yeah.
There was a moment where we saw sirens and you saw vehicles sort of coming up Dixon Court, ostensibly, right? Things had been going on for 2 hours at that point, maybe 2.5. You saw the sirens. Basically, every reporter goes, oh, okay, because every reporter sees sirens during all this, and they know, oh, time to reposition myself. So if you look, I'm sure there's helicopter footage somewhere. Every single person you see that's a reporter, you see them sort of go towards the front of the grass, maybe off to the side, because they're thinking maybe they're going to come in hot. Who knows? Mm-hmm. So I remember running up, and I actually took footage while I was doing this, and I just posted it. You see the sirens, you see the lights getting closer and closer and closer, and then you see them turn around. and go away. And then it was another 15, 20 minutes before you saw just this tiny, laughably small LAPD force mobilized there. And then CHP also mobilized there. And what they did, and this is really important because you keep hearing, why didn't they show up? Well, it's not just why didn't they show up. When they arrived, they just kind of stood there for over an hour, right?
Yeah.
And I would say the worst violence I saw actually happened in full view of those officers.
Yeah, in the last hour, when I could throw a football from where the violence was happening to the officers. So you got to understand, this all, I remember at around, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I didn't see any younger, more aggressive people there. But I did notice that the music they were playing was sort of demeaning.
Oh.
The noise, the sounds, it was meant to disrupt. But it was somewhere around like 10:15, I saw in the back corner a group of guys, about 3 dozen, dressed in black, and it was dark, so I could only see a silhouette. So I thought they were riot squad at first.
Oh.
Then I realized it wasn't. And then I said, okay, shit is going to jump off.
Do you think if you had thrown that football at the cops, they would have got out of their damn cars?
No, they were already out of their cars. They were standing there.
But I'm asking, what would have taken for them to actually do their
they
job?
I don't know. You got to understand. After they came and stormed the encampment. They started storming. So there was 2 sets of barriers set up by security.
Which day are you talking about?
On the 30th.
Okay.
They went, and there were security guards there. They started moving the barriers. The security guards were trying to hold on to them, and they were snatching away from security. And then finally, security gave up, and they moved to the side. Then they started storming the encampment. They even brought theme music.
This is the counter-protesters.
The counter-protesters
Yes.
storming the encampment.
Yes.
Right then, when that happened, I was thinking, within 5 minutes, you're going to have the riot squad from the LAPD funnel out of some of these buildings and come, and they're going to put an end to this in 5 minutes, because that's what usually happens in protests.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And then you heard people around me saying, oh, the cops are going to be here any second. I was saying it. The cops are going to be here any second.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 45 minutes that they showed up with lights and sat in front of the action by the street and then left.
Yeah.
And then we didn't see cops again for hours, for 2-3 hours. And like Sean said, when they did get out of the car, they stood there where you could throw a football away, while I will, again, like he said, that last hour before the cops finally stepped in was probably the most violent hour. And the cops stepped in when it was over.
Yeah.
They were sort of self-dispersing.
The counter-protesters had begun to completely leave by the time.
William's doing an excellent job of being an objective reporter. Can I ask you?
Yeah.
What's your theory? Why they drag their feet? Do you have a theory?
So I don't have an overarching theory or anything. So you can keep your tinfoil hat out, but there's a few things we do. Either we're pretty sure we know, or we do know, right?
Okay.
The first thing that we know is that the vice chancellor, who is ostensibly in charge of UC Police Department, and
a black man, I learned, and was very disappointed. Seriously, we beg for a chance. No. Black people beg for a chance for other black people to finally get the job. And when we fail at Supreme Court, when we fail at the mayor, when we fail at all these other things, we're like, why did we fight for this?
This is about policing. It's not about color. It doesn't matter who you have in that position.
Everything's color to me, William.
I know. Now listen, when it comes to policing, you got to be colorblind with it, because it doesn't matter who's in charge.
Because they're going to act the same.
Yes.
They're going to act the same.
Yes.
Until
it's back to blue, man.
But this wasn't the same. When cops see violence, they step in.
When? I mean, not
you see it
they usually step in, and start inflicting the violence too.
Right.
All right.
Which is what you expected.
They learned a valuable lesson that night, that the police aren't going to protect them.
Right. And we don't know why.
And it doesn't matter who's in charge or whatever. If I were to chalk it up to anything, it's just total incompetence all the way around. Just absolute incompetence. I don't have to have a tinfoil hat. And listen, I feel very comfortable. And I think we can all agree on that. At some level, there was incompetence here.
But
Sean sent me something today that I didn't know about who was actually stepped in. Tell him, Sean.
Okay, so I was going to get to that. So, all right. So here's what we know, right? Number one, we know that the vice chancellor was asked by the rest of the university to form a plan.
Yes.
And that plan was asked for, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but about a week
Right.
before the large attack happened, right?
Yes.
From multiple accounts, according to
LA Times.
According to the LA Times, the plan that they asked for essentially was exactly what happened. And they asked repeatedly, and he was unable to deliver the plan whatsoever.
That's
he was
right.
then asked how long it would take for a large mobilization to happen, and he said, matter of minutes. Very obviously, that was not just wrong, but way off. Now, look,
Right.
Police officers, in some ways, right, when you're not at work, it's going to take you a while to get to work, right?
Yep.
I mean, you drive an Uber, but say for a minute you're a bartender, right?
Okay.
Say your boss calls you, says, I need you to come to work.
Yeah.
All right. Are you going to come right away? Are you going to hop in your car immediately, get to work? Of course not, right? Because like maybe you have to put your kids to bed. Maybe you have to shower. Who knows, right? The point is it takes a while to get to work, right?
That's right.
So now you have to get to work, right? You have to get in your car once you're at work. You have to suit up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go to a location to mobilize.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
Regardless of your opinion on policing, that takes time,
Yeah.
right? So to say it was a matter of minutes, that's
And these cops don't live in LA.
a lot of them do not, right? A lot of them live 45 minutes away, 50 minutes away, an
Yeah.
hour, a minute away. Hey, some of them live in Idaho, right?
That's right.
That guy's probably going to show up in a day or two. But it's pretty clear that call, if all the reporting is true, and it seems to be, right? I have no doubt. I have no reason to doubt that reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like that was a pretty boneheaded move. That seems like that was an extremely dangerously unprepared move.
That's right.
Now,
Especially because let's put that back in the framing. UC asked for this a week before it went down,
yeah,
and so
Why did they ask for that though?
because they knew.
Because they knew it. They saw it coming.
That's right.
Everybody saw it coming except for this guy.
Right.
Especially us on the ground. Like we were talking days before this, we knew it was going to happen. And you want to know something? If the next night someone could have possibly been killed if it kept going in this. And you know what? It could have happened that night.
Would it have taken them 6 hours to get the cops there if somebody died?
There's no saying, but it did.
No.
It's not even important though.
It wouldn't have.
They failed.
But this is why I don't want to be Mr. Tinfoil Hat. I'm usually not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's impossible for me to believe that a $3 billion police force.
Oh, it's not $3 billion.
What is it?
Well, this is UCLA PD. They're the ones calling the shot at first.
I do not care about UC Police because this is still in LA, right next door to the FBI building. You call it the federal building. I call it the FBI building. You cannot have that happen in the middle of LA. By the way, what surrounds UCLA?
This is a failure. First off, like I said,
Yeah.
all the higher ups of the UCLA PD need to be fired.
All of them,
right?
I mean.
They're completely incompetent.
Well, there's only 2 or 3 of them.
With that, then on top of it, again,
Yeah.
the LAPD should have been prepared for this. They should have been
Yes.
staged, right? They shouldn't have to call in people who are not at work and say, "Hey, come on in." They should have been prepared earlier in the day
Yes.
and had them staged.
But they were there.
What do you mean?
You said you could throw a football at them.
Listen.
They were there and still didn't come in.
They were probably waiting for others to show up because they were showing up one by one. They had to have everybody show up and have the chain of command and stuff. And I'm sure that there was some sort of disagreement because you have the LAPD and the CHP. So who's
Who's the
actually,
boss?
yeah. And
the
I
boss?
bet you, I would love to know that. I would love to know. I believe it was Captain Laurie who was running the scene. And it seemed like he was the one running the scene. But I wonder if there was some sort of discourse between CHP and the LAPD on who's running it.
and to be clear, there's also reporting that they were given the wrong staging area address at one point. It was just an absolute utter disaster.
But okay, but again, I didn't see too many weapons on all the footage that I saw. I'm not saying that there weren't, but even if there's, and we talked about this,
Define weapon.
a gun. I bet you somebody had a gun.
What about like one of those aluminum water bottles that people carry around? And I flung it at somebody's head. Is that a weapon?
I don't consider that a weapon.
I do.
I mean, it is if you get
Compared to a
hit in the
cop?
head.
Or somebody taking a bicycle lock and throwing it at somebody.
No. Not compared to a cop.
What about a large wooden plank?
Yeah,
I would consider that a weapon.
I'm saying if
What about a knife? I saw
what about
a
a
knife.
knife?
I'm
I saw a
saying
knife.
if I'm a LA police officer
Mm-hmm.
with a bulletproof vest, they all wear them, with guns and all this other Batman crap on my belt, right? I have to win that fight.
Yeah.
And if I've got 20 of my brothers next to me, we can beat these.
They have protocol. They have their protocol. They have to make sure that everybody is there. Everybody's checked in. They're going to have to go over what the plan is, how they're going to move through. They're not just going to go in and say, just come in there with their baton swinging. They have to move in slowly. There's a lot of tactics involved.
Which is what they did that one night at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? That's what you're saying.
Listen, yeah, they did this, but they did all this slow. Listen, this went on for over. Listen, Washington Post can say whatever they want. My footage shows this lasted from the beginning of the fight to the end, 4 hours and 20 minutes. You could have. We've talked about this before. You could have taken a flight from Chicago, got to the airport, and took an Uber over and got involved.
The Daily Bruin reporters.
Who, by the way, did an excellent job.
I was really impressed overall.
Yeah.
I think if you get a chance, you should really put them on because they were given an impossible task.
This is why I would want to have them on. They had one reporter who was definitely out of pocket and unprofessional, and I wrote their editors. I wrote 5 different people in one email, and I was like, "This is ruining your beautiful week that you've got going right now."
What happened?
He had some stupid tweet, and so
Tony had a stupid tweet in response to a stupid tweet.
No. They did take it down. They obeyed me, as they always should. But they actually did the right thing because they saw it and they were like, this is messed up, and continued with their day. I mean, I felt weird because obviously their entire campus is under warfare almost. It did probably seem like Vietnam to them. The cops were trying to arrest them. They were getting brutalized. They couldn't get into their office. All these things. You're absolutely right. The Daily Bruin.
Yeah,
they reported well.
Look, they were given an absolutely impossible task.
Yes.
Given the resources that they have. And in the process...
One other thing I want to say that maybe you'll understand is when they went to the security on one of those days, I think it was the 29th, and said, "We're the cops." Mm-hmm. The security guard said to them, the private security said, "Will you please call them for us?" As if they don't have a phone, these security guys? There's no communication?
Yeah, you would think that the security guards at least have a direct line, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the UCLA, reporters, look, I'm sure they made a few missteps. But again, it's so important to understand they were given an absolutely utterly ridiculously impossible task.
Yes.
Many of them were, I talked to them off and on. Many of them had been up for 18 hours straight at certain points.
Yeah.
Many of them, something would happen and they'd have to rush out of their dorm room and
Yep.
literally run. They took great photos. Mm-hmm. I thought they did an outstanding job given the complete lack of resources they did. So
young as heck. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
we're
some
talking
of them,
19, 20-year-old kids.
Yeah, some of them are freshly into college, as far as I can understand,
And freshly into journalism.
Well, and not only that, but it's also important to know that UCLA does not have a journalism program.
They don't?
No. So these are kids that literally are not studying journalism. These are kids that this is their...
It's the volunteer paper.
Their passion. I don't know if it's volunteer.
Well, maybe they get a couple bucks.
But I'm sure they're not getting paid. Well, nobody in this business is getting paid great anymore. But
yeah.
I'm sure they're getting paid even less.
Right.
So
good for them.
Even after the police had arrived, as far as I can tell, I'm just trying to triangulate exactly when things happened. But Daily Bruin's reporters were attacked by the mob after the police had already cleared the area. That's, again, we're talking about, this is a really concerning thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Can't stress this enough. Again, the police didn't stop fighting. They just moved in
right
after it was over and occupied a space.
Yeah.
People dispersed sort of on their own.
Right.
And so you had attacks happening on, this is a large campus, UCLA.
Yeah.
And attacks were happening elsewhere.
Well, but the cops also did tear down their encampment.
Not that night.
Oh.
Yeah, that was
I'm
the
just
next
saying in
night.
general, though, when the cops decided that they wanted to do things, they did the things. And so I'm still curious why. Why is the number one question
So
I've got.
there's
Look,
a few.
I will always say on this, and especially after that and the week after that, the UCLA PD is highly incompetent.
Yes.
As for the LAPD, they're going to have to decide.
So the important thing to know is so during all this, right? The New York Times just released a piece. It looks like the only reason CHP arrived is because the governor himself saw what was going on, saw that there were no police, and called CHP in personally. That is wild.
So he went over Bass's head, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
so Bass has no control over CHP.
But she has over LAPD.
Right.
He could.
Yeah.
It sounded like.
So in other words, they're saying, Bass, LAPD, you guys aren't doing
We
anything.
asked
What are we
you.
waiting for?
Right.
Get somebody in there, which could have been a situation where they then had the LAPD and there might have been some bumping of heads of who's in control between the LAPD and the CHP, which delayed things. Who knows? It could totally be incompetence. Mm-hmm. It may not be as nefarious as people think.
Right.
But again, when you're dealing with all these resources and they're getting a huge amount of our budget,
Yep.
and we're paying them like highly trained professionals. We're paying them $130,000 like somebody who works in the private sector who is a trained professional.
Yep.
And yet here's how they dealt with. Listen, the people who are actually running the show are being paid $250,000, $300,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And look at the performance of all the agencies involved. LAPD, CHP, and the UCLA PD.
Yes. And they had a heads up of a week. It wasn't like this just happened.
This has been going on. Again, Sean and I knew to be there.
Right.
We knew it was going to happen.
Right.
I was actually getting ready to leave because nothing was happening, and I was shocked that nothing had happened. Everybody saw it coming.
Yes.
And so there's just not an excuse
Right.
for being unprepared for this.
Have the cops said anything about this?
No, but there's
as far
one more.
as admitting that they bungled it in some way?
So there's one more really important thing to know.
Okay.
We kind of touched on this, but this vice chancellor guy, right?
Yeah.
So during all this, he's getting texts,
Right.
right? In at least one of those texts that the Washington Post apparently got their hands on, one of them says, "Where are you?" And he says, "I'm at home." Just called LAPD.
This was like at 12:30 at
You
night.
know, I read the article this morning.
I
so
think it's much earlier. I think it's actually somewhere around like the 11 o'clock hour.
So he said he called the cops at
So that's the
11
thing. It's
p.m.
interesting because he said he called the LAPD, but if you go, according to the article,
Yeah.
LAPD is saying that they didn't get the call for like 2.5 hours.
Right.
So the timelines don't add up. He may have been lying when he said he called in the LAPD. He really may have, because from the time where he said he called in the LAPD to the time that the LAPD saying he called in is like an hour and a half gap.
Right.
Or maybe, who knows? Maybe he just called 911 and thought that's. I mean, we don't know, right?
Well, he
We
said
don't
he
know
was
for sure.
watching it at home,
Right.
right? And I think that's important. How was he watching at home? Was he watching from the helicopter? Imagine looking down at that from the helicopter and not thinking, you know what, this is crazy. Fireworks exploding, gas all over the place, things being thrown around.
If there's ever a day to go to work, right? That's the day.
Don't tell me that people feel unsafe on campus while this is going on. Don't tell me you're concerned about safety on campus
That's right.
while you have this melee going on.
Well, and are we shocked that they then hired the Uvalde guy who acted the same way, or defended the people who acted the same way?
As far as I'm concerned, no matter who they hire on this, and they said they're going to bring in, some LAPD and whoever, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the independent journalists that are actually going to do a better job. Yes, we don't have access to a lot of their communications and stuff. I think in some ways that's not important. That maybe will be aired. What's most important is, and it's honestly, I don't really care too much about the reasons for the police response being so slow. That's important. Mm-hmm. The most important aspect is, who are these people? And are they going to be held accountable for their dozens or hundreds of assaults? That's what I care about. I want justice for those kids, because those kids took a beating. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't fight back.
Okay, well, they did have bear spray.
Listen, that's defense. I don't care.
Okay.
If you have somebody coming at you with knives, bats, whatever.
Explosions.
Yeah, listen, you have a bear coming at you, you spray some bear spray. I'm not.
That's right.
Right? That's defensive. It's not
Yes.
an offensive thing. They were not coming out,
That's right.
running out at him when they got close to him. And you know what? Can you blame them?
No, I'm telling you, they won me over.
They did a great job.
Because I was like,
I told you those guys. I was behind the wall the night before, and I said they did not stand a chance.
right.
And you know what they did? They sat there for 4 hours and 20 minutes, and not a single person got past. Not a single person. And I give them a ton of credit. I don't think I've been so impressed by any action at a protest
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
I don't know how they did it.
It's 300.
Well, and also, listen, I'm going to speak from Sean, because I don't know if it's true or not. I was deeply traumatized. I bet you he was too. I was
really?
traumatized by that. I was traumatized by it.
At what stage were you traumatized?
When I got home, I broke down.
From what day?
From the fight, the 4 hour and 20-minute siege. You could not listen. I know it's different watching it on TV or watching it on a stream or whatever. But when you're there and you have the bear spray going on and you're hearing the people cry out in pain and you're that charged atmosphere and it's the ugliness of it, and it was one-sided. And it was frustrating because I actually went off on the press at one point because I said, you know what? There was a lull in action about an hour in. And I said, I don't want to hear you guys say that this was a mutual combat fight. This was one side attacking the other side. And it needs to be reported as such. And I know you guys aren't going to do it. And of course, they never. I mean, not that they were totally dishonest, but some were.
Mm-hmm.
They
did both sides the hell out of it.
Were you traumatized?
Oh, hell yeah. Look,
For the same reasons?
A lot of the same reasons. So for me, there's a few things. The first one is look. Let me tell you this. I've been through it before, right? I've seen some pretty gnarly stuff. Yeah. I watched a gun battle happen in Portland. Got a gun pointed at my face in Portland. Through 2020 to 2022. One time I got kicked and bear maced by like 12 different guys. I've seen, I saw a black woman get surrounded and bear sprayed and pummeled on January 6th right outside LAPD HQ. This was pretty unique in the sense that, number one, this was what I would call, at minimum, a racialized mob. These were... I think in some ways calling them pro-Israel isn't accurate. I think anti-Palestinian would be more accurate. These are not guys that are, regardless of your feeling about, the war, the genocide in Gaza, I certainly have my feelings, but I stay out of that as a journalist. These are people who were there to attack Palestinian demonstrators. These are not people who are demonstrating for Israel or against Hamas, right? These are people who are specifically there to fuck up Palestinian demonstrators. And I think that that's really, really important, and that's why I think the word counter-protester is just better. I've never seen kids scream for that long. There's also this thing they were using, and this is not just that day, but particularly that day, they were using songs which were... One of the songs is actually used by the IDF to torture Hamas prisoners. That was one of the songs they were playing over a loudspeaker, and it is extremely repetitive.
For hours.
For hours.
On loop.
Is this the song you said
Same
was...
This is how they used to... Listen, I've...
Unverified, to be clear. I don't know this for a fact, but there's been a lot of reports of it.
You didn't Shazam it?
He found video of him using it against prisoners.
So I speak a little bit of Hebrew and a little bit of Yiddish. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, I feel like I've heard this song before. So I looked it up, and that's what they're using it for, potentially. Again, it's unverified reports.
Especially, I've heard that they use it primarily against the kids, Palestinian kids.
Yeah.
You have to understand, right? I don't think this is just your average person that lives in Westwood. I think these people were radicalized.
Right.
I also think, speaking of traumatization, one of the things that actually got to me, right, is so this large loudspeaker with this very large sounds. This I believe it's called "This Is Hamas" is the name of the film. It's a documentary film showing a lot of body cam that was taken by Hamas soldiers. Right. I really think that one of the things that was not reported on correctly is just how loud that loudspeaker was throughout those last couple days. I was never able to get like a decibel reader, right? But I was able to go, according to Google Maps, right, with the GPS, I was able to go a couple hundred feet and around the corner, and I could still hear gunshots and, women screaming, right? So, that would make me feel incredibly unsafe, particularly, there's a specific issue in the United States with school shootings.
Sure.
I would be fucking terrified if I heard screaming and gunshots and didn't know where they were coming from on a college campus. That's, I think, pretty natural. I talked to a few students who were, uninvolved, who said they could actually hear the gunshots and the screams inside the buildings while they were taking tests. That's ridiculous.
And this is a tape that the counter protesters were playing
on a big screen.
On a big screen,
yeah,
right in that half circle where you drop off people.
So at first they were basically pointing it at the encampment. At one point they turned it around.
Right.
So there was that, and ultimately,
okay, real quick though. That's disturbing the peace. If I'm the cop, I'm unplugging that TV. Forget your First Amendment.
Yeah, listen, I want to stress how loud it was. Again, I was in the encampment the night before.
Yeah.
I will say that they were having a meeting.
Yeah.
Using megaphones, and they were having a hard time being heard at the meeting.
Wow.
So, and imagine hearing that all night long. How do you get sleep? That was the point.
Right.
They wanted to disrupt their sleep. They're not going to sleep that night.
The cops can't unplug that TV? You think that's First Amendment?
Listen, I think that they were breaking some rules.
Okay.
All right. Do I think that the encampment was breaking rules too? Yes.
What rules were they breaking?
By having the encampment there.
Oh, right.
So I think that the school's thing is, hey, we're going to give both sides some leeway on this.
Oof.
So as far as both ends go, when you're talking about a college campus, you're talking about the First Amendment.
Yep. Which I love, by the way, for the record. But if I'm a cop, peace. We'll settle First Amendment in court later.
Right. So on regarding both the encampment and a large display like that, I'm going to be real with you. I don't think we're going to find out the answer to exactly what is First Amendment protected activity on either end, probably until some sort of court case from somebody that's probably going to take years. Right. These are both, line-sitting things, right?
Yep.
So it's...
But in the heat of the moment, that's why you get paid the $250,000.
Yeah, they would have came over. This is what they could have done. They could have came over there and gave them a $100 ticket. That's what they could have done.
Well, see, we're from the Midwest.
You're going to unplug it. You unplug you unplug that, and you're going to have guys on megaphones making a ton of noise.
Better.
That's what they did.
Better.
That's what they did.
Fine.
It was just as loud. That was loud.
Was it really?
Yes, this is all loud. They had no peace. All night long. Even when you cut the TV off, their megaphones were loud. And then they had the speakers out there with the music playing. Yeah. That was loud.
I saw a fight over those speakers. Did you see that little video?
Yeah, they tried to steal the speaker.
The guy turned his back.
They came out there and grabbed it.
That was kind of hilarious to me.
They almost got it.
That speaker, though, seemed light. Because it seemed like he was able to,
There were two of them. It was on wheels.
Yeah.
It's the year 2024.
I guess so, huh?
Yeah,
Bose speakers?
Look at the size of your speakers. I'll bet that gets pretty loud.
But when I see the Mexican guys tiny with their big-ass speakers, I'm like, that's a speaker.
I'm going to tell you, it was constantly loud out there.
Yeah.
Constantly. And so, yeah,
Okay, so, by the way, when you talk about trauma, I think this is one thing that people liked about your first episode with me, where you talked about when you yell at the police, sometimes when you go home, it's hard to sleep.
No, this is a different level.
But what I'm saying is you show this humanity that you're not just Mr. Tough Guy out there. that you're a human being and these things do seep into you.
Yeah, I broke down when I got home. I couldn't go to sleep. I went for a walk, and I was tired as hell.
You had to get it out.
It took days to get over. I mean, I'm over it now, but it took honestly, low key, I was shell shocked. It took a couple days, and I never feel that way.
Really?
I never feel that way. And listen, I'm gonna tell you. Listen, what sets this apart, right? We've seen gnarly things. Sean's seen, been in protests and seen shootings. I've been out in the streets and seen shootings. We've seen people stabbed at protests. We've seen stuff, and those things usually happen for 10, 15 minutes, and the cops find a way to moving in. I think it was the matter of it being just sustained.
Yeah.
For hour after hour after hour. You just didn't know where this was going to end. You felt like somebody was going to end up getting killed.
Yep. Did you have to take a little walk afterwards too?
So I want to be clear. I come from a military family, right?
That's why you were in Denver. I knew it. Air Force.
No. Colorado was just just wanted to be somewhere that wasn't, Milwaukee for a little bit. But I have family members who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. One of the important things that that's important to know is there are some people that go through what I would argue are objectively worse, right? Terrorist bombings or famine or things like that, right? The trauma when it's inward, right? It's actually, in my experience, it's not remembering specific events. It's remembering how you feel and remembering sort of the condition that your brain and your nerves and your body are in, right? So, for me, what I remember mostly is, having the nerves really hit me, and being really, really hyper aware of everything around me. Because look, at any point, that crowd could have turned on journalists, right? A few journalists were attacked, a few journalists were pepper sprayed. To be honest with you, given my relationship with some of the people in that crowd, I'm a little surprised I wasn't one of them.
I was concerned about those kids. I was my heart broken for those kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely heartbroken.
And
what they went through.
Yeah.
It's funny because when you're shooting, me and William both shoot. We shoot for slightly different reasons, and we shoot with slightly different. One of the things that I'm looking for is images, right? What tells the story, and also kind of what's going on right now. But I also know, especially in large scale things, that I'm probably going to be hit up for important footage and things like that. And I remember after the crowd had sort of formed the counter-protester crowd sort of formed like this line and just charged right at the wooden barricades, and we're kicking it, and there was just we're spraying into the camp and things like that. Yeah. There was this moment where somebody in the camp had what looked like a tear gas fogger. It might have been CS. And I'll never forget this moment because, to be honest with you, I paid for it pretty hard. I saw poking out of the encampment, one of these ostensibly students, their hand is out, and they've got a peace sign.
Wow.
And there's people screaming at them. I saw things like hitting near the peace sign, and it's funny because for me, what always makes me feel better is knowing that there's somebody out there who gives a shit about peace, right? Who gives a shit about making a better world, right? Now, to get that shot, I had to crawl through an entire cloud of bear spray and tear gas. But that is something that I always think of when I'm starting, when I feel my blood pressure going up, right? Is that you have these awful moments, but you have these moments where you see somebody out here as being a human being, right? And it's easy to forget that. I did get that shot.
Who'd you sell it to?
Nobody bought it.
What?
I know.
What?
I know. But
what? Is it as good as I hope it is, this picture?
What's funny is because my heart rate was elevated, sometimes when I can't see, because you really need a 10-second shot to sell, I miscounted. It was 7 seconds. So, it's still a cool shot. But
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been through a lot. Will's been through a lot, certainly. And
Those kids been through it. Those
The-
kids.
the-
Listen,
what's important to know
watch
is-
those kids afterwards when they realized that they had won, and they started celebrating by doing their chant, talking about how you don't scare us, we're not leaving.
Yes.
That right there, that was their celebration. They had been through hell, right? So they weren't hand slapping and stuff like that and saying we won. That was their way of doing it and letting, for themselves and to let everybody know.
So I'm not in contact with a huge amount of people who want to go on record or anything like that about what they went through. Partially because, one of the tricky things about journalism sometimes is, when you're asking for somebody to go on the record, you're asking for them to publish their name. And obviously they had just been through, an attack from people who, potentially could attack again.
Sure.
But the people that I've talked to off the record, the students that I've talked to off the record, I was just watching it. They were living through it.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of them are really struggling. And one of the things that I did a few days ago was I actually went on the UCLA Reddit page, and there's a few posts that honestly, I feel for these kids because you got to remember it's finals week. Imagine you had just gone through 4 hours of sustained assaults. I don't think there's anybody in that camp that at least didn't get a couple bruises, right? Some people got it worse than that. You just saw, somebody yelling the N-word, all these things, right? Sustained, loud sounds. All right, now you wake up. Now you got to go, take a 400 question multiple choice on urban planning, right? I can't even imagine going through that. I always think of, when 9/11 happened, I'll never forget this math professor's got 9/11 on the TV. Like, it's happening. Passes out math tests, right?
No,
not a single kid passed that test, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah. So, I'm sure these kids, I wonder, it can't not have affected their education.
Well, it seems like a lot of the teachers were supporting them because they got arrested later.
Some of them. Listen,
some of them were probably very much not in support too.
That's true.
No, yeah, some of them. It's not. I don't even know if it'd be a majority. I don't.
Let's
No,
just.
I'm gonna tell you this, right? I had people reach out to me afterwards who got their ass kicked, who got their ass beaten, asked me if they have footage of it. They asked me if they have footage. One guy asked me if I have any footage of him getting beaten up because he wanted to prove that he did not go on attack because he's worried about his immigration status.
Ugh.
All right, so I'm telling you,
Yeah.
these people in that camp, they went through it for various different reasons.
There was daylight when we saw convoys of cops going up the 10 freeway, heading their way to UCLA. And we thought, okay, stuff's going to happen. The helicopter from ABC was flying, and it was still daylight. And yet, they didn't actually start what I consider work until like 3 o'clock in the morning. Did you guys think it was going to happen in the daylight? Did you think that
No.
they were going to
No,
spend
They never
all...
do.
Did you
never-
think they were going to spend 8 hours staging?
They never.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
They
they
did.
Why would it? Let's put it in this perspective.
Okay.
If they were going to raid a suspect's house
Yeah.
to arrest them, when do they do it?
At night,
Right, when they're least expecting it.
right?
When there are the least amount of people there.
Yeah.
They're going to have a maximum amount of people there at 7 o'clock at night. Why would you do it then when you're going to have it at 3 o'clock in the morning when there are the fewest amount of people?
And that was one of the theories, was that they were just going to wait out the kids in the tents to get tired and want to go home, so that they would have to clear out fewer people. Which, did you see those kids leave?
Some people left.
Oh, they did.
Well, some people would come and go. They would come and go.
Oh.
And then you had that night, you had people who were making decisions. They were there to be arrested,
Yeah.
purposely arrested.
Where did you guys pee? Were there places to pee?
We found places.
Like, were there porta potties set up?
No.
You know, luckily I didn't drink a whole lot of water the whole week, so I.
You weren't hydrating, sir?
No, I was not hydrating. I did a bad job of that. But if you were gonna pee, there were a few spots that I think most people were using.
Okay.
He's talking about trees.
Trees. There's
There are
plenty
a lot,
of trees at
there are
UCLA.
there are a lot of trees in
It's a
UCLA.
beautiful campus.
It's,
It is-
it's an amazing campus.
It's the most beautiful campus.
Yeah, it really is.
Truly.
Yeah, it beats USC. It does.
By a long shot.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing campus. And it's not an easy campus to walk to. It's a lot of hills.
It is.
You're gonna put a workout in if you're covering a protest there when you're doing
It's
lap
sneaky
after
hilly.
lap.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not even sneaky. I start dreading it after a while. Certain parts you just don't
Even
wanna go
you.
to. No, listen, after like 25,000 steps, after 7 hours of walking in circles up and down hills, like you're tired. I'm looking for
Yeah.
benches to lay on and whatever.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay, so around 3 a.m., the cops decide, fine, we're going to do this. And it was a
They
slow
were building
march.
they were building up to that point. They were trying to make moves. I mean, listen, at 1 o'clock in the morning, they breached the back wall by the steps. They came in there and they were forced out.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
It sure was.
It's because they didn't want to force their way through?
Because they were unprepared for what was coming.
My read, obviously we haven't had any confirmations or anything like that. I'm sure that LAPD will do an after action report and we'll kind of get a better sense of that. But from what I saw,
Yeah.
I think LAPD was able to get through a crowd of protesters that had kind of moved out of the way, through a gate that was pretty much just sort of opened for them. And once they got there, I think my guess is that they were expecting a lot more people to leave once they were there, or possibly they were expecting people to be a little bit more docile.
Right.
So what ended up happening was, at least from my angle, William, I think you were in the encampment, but I was on the west wall of the encampment kind of looking in. What I saw was a bunch of police officers. They get up there, they get into the encampment. Then the encampment kind of realized they were there, and I saw a whole lot of protesters get to the other end with, some of them had like pallets and boogie boards and things like that as sort of blocking agents. And then they just kind of stood there. From my vantage point, I saw the cops walking in. They weren't even fully geared. So I think the most likely answer to that is they realized that they had walked themselves into a lot more smoke than they had planned for from the protesters' end. And there was even one police officer who, it was pretty clear they had kind of started to realize, oh boy, we got to get out of here. At that point, a bunch of protesters had actually started on the other end of the encampment. So the police officers were essentially surrounded by demonstrators.
They'd been kettled.
They had essentially kettled themselves.
Yeah.
So
Which is always funny.
Yeah, I mean, they walked right into...
You've been waiting 8 hours, and to your point about incompetence, to me, that's just true.
This right here was a truly incompetent act.
Yeah.
None of it made sense. Like
yeah,
you said,
tactically, it makes no sense.
none of it made sense. And like you said, they weren't properly geared. Yes, they were wearing helmets and shields.
Yeah.
But usually when you go into something like this, they have on their armor to get ready to bang. They were completely unprepared. It weren't nearly enough cops for what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then once they got in there, they were like, okay, so what do we do now?
Right.
And
so they had no game
and
plan.
the people in the encampment were surprised by them getting in so easily. And so they started rallying and working their shields up to the front with a second layer of, I guess, protection behind them. They were very well organized, and the cops were absolutely overwhelmed, forced down the steps. And even after they got forced down the steps, they got to the field and they were still running. They were running. Listen, I don't. Once again, the only way you could describe what happened is just total incompetence. None of that made sense. Why they would go in by themselves at that one time and not from the other angles made no sense.
Right.
None of it made sense. Everything they did that night was a scattershot. Remember, that was the LAPD acting, whereas the CHP they were better prepared, and they tried to get into another angle, and they were much more, I don't know if you want to call it violent, but physical.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, at 3 a.m.,
None
sorry,
of it made
everybody.
sense. None of it made sense.
It's time for us to be cops now and for you to go away. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be a hard ass cop at 3 a.m. We've been telling you to leave.
This is when they do. This is
for
when
hours and hours and hours, right?
Yeah.
By the way, you mentioned smoke. There seemed to be some smoke coming out of the encampment that some people thought was a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, probably.
Is that probably what it was?
Could be.
It wasn't. It wasn't spicy though. It wasn't.
No.
Okay.
They were probably out of stuff.
Mm.
They were spraying water bottles to try to keep it away. That's what they were doing.
Anything.
No. Yeah, it was a fire extinguisher. They weren't. It wasn't spicy
Right.
stuff at the cops.
There were reports of chemical irritants
Yeah.
on not the west end, which is where the police sort of had come in the back,
Uh-huh.
but on the other end. However, those have not been verified. And to your point, a fire extinguisher would absolutely make sense because I know from the helicopter and things like that.
Oh, there's a good picture of it. That was a fire extinguisher.
Okay.
We skipped over the fireworks though. The fireworks was pretty. It was interesting. It
Are
made
you
for
talking
some-
about the during the counter protester end?
Yes.
Okay.
But what was scary was when the counter protesters actually lobbed explosives, which might have also been just fireworks, into
Those were fireworks.
the encampment,
Yeah.
because that could hurt somebody,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and probably did hurt people, right?
I don't know.
Because it's a dense situation in there. And did you guys ever feel like one of those explosives could hurt you?
I mean, absolutely. To be honest with you, my concern.
William shaking his head no.
My concern when I saw those is, I camp a lot, and I'm a fun camper, right? And sometimes, look, tents go up real quick if they're let on fire, real quick, right? You've got a bunch of tents densely packed in, alongside wood,
A lot of paperwork.
alongside signs which are made of paper.
Yep.
That was actually my biggest fear at the time, was that a large scale fire could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's then talk about how long it took all these cops, because it seemed like there was hundreds and hundreds of cops
I don't
between
know.
the CHP,
Yeah, I guess
the private people who didn't seem like they were doing anything,
they weren't cops.
and then the LAPD. Did it seem like it took too long to you guys too?
Yeah, they should have been there in 10 minutes. They weren't prepared. I expected them to be already inside the buildings. And a professor said that they had something planned all year, some sort of, I forget what it was, but that the LAPD had completely taken over one of the floors of the buildings. We figured that they were up there and they had some numbers. And I actually saw a riot squad the previous Sunday going inside the buildings. We figured that once things started getting hairy, they're going to come slip out and go right down the middle, and
Yep.
it never happened. So am I surprised? Yeah, I think we're all shocked by that.
Mm-hmm.
I expect them to be there in 5 minutes.
Did you guys think you were going to be arrested on that night?
No,
I mean, there's always a chance, right? I did not think so, though.
yeah, I wasn't thinking about that.
I was worried about arrest because they brought in all of these school buses, like cop school buses.
Yeah, but we know how to maneuver around that. They're going to set up a line, and you just move with the line. You know what to expect.
So the people who want to be arrested will get arrested.
Yeah, nobody's going to want. Honestly, in those sort of situations,
There was
they're
no
just-
symbolic
They're
arrest?
clearing things out. No, they don't arrest during those situations. They kind of clear things out. If they do arrest, it's usually because you're fighting with a cop at the skirmish line.
Did you guys see any cops getting fought
On which night is
on the
this?
clear out night?
Yeah, I saw somebody get arrested. I got kettled, and I was about to be arrested myself.
How did you get out of it?
I appealed to the supervisor. I said, "What the hell do I have to do with this? I'm just in there covering this. I'm filming this." And they said he had nothing to do with it, and they let me go.
Great. Had the counter protesters cleared out by the time the cops showed up at 3 a.m.?
No, they were around.
And none of them got arrested either?
No,
No, not a single one. I'm still waiting to hear back. It's to my knowledge, none of the people involved in the counter protest have been arrested currently.
Wow.
zero.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's wild. I've been going through my footage just to kind of get a sense of things, and there's actually a few moments where I saw some of the most violent offenders just walk right on past.
I'm confident that will not stay the case for very long. I don't know how long.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of efforts right now to listen. Everybody knows it's not most of these guys have been identified.
Right.
And most of the individual crimes have been documented. It's going to be presented in a number of ways. Crime reports have been filed,
Good.
both at UCLA and in West LA LAPD.
Uh-huh.
And so things are moving on. People don't know about it. Sean and I know about it, but things are moving behind the scenes.
So this is kind of like January 6th. Because there's all this
Yeah.
video
No, yeah,
and photos,
it's a lot like it.
it's going to take a little time, but they're going to get them.
Listen, the information's there
Right.
to arrest people now. Now it's about putting the pressure on the district attorney and whoever else to actually get it done. If no pressure is put, there will not be an arrest.
So a few days later, you guys are there again at the parking lot. What made you wake up that early to go to the parking lot? How did you know to be there?
I didn't wake up. I was still up.
I got to
You hadn't slept all night?
I hadn't slept all night. I had gotten a tip that something was going to happen at a college campus, late night or early morning, around 4:30-ish. I had finally just kind of...
But the encampment was gone at that point, hadn't it?
Yeah,
been?
it had already been cleared
So
for
what?
a few days.
What?
Listen, there was a tip that
Yeah.
there was going to be a First Amendment action at 5:30 at UCLA.
A protest.
The First Amendment action. I don't know what it is.
But that means students, though, doesn't it?
First Amendment action is the first. There's a number of ways of doing it. So it could have been a protest, but I'll just leave it at that.
I didn't even get that much.
But you knew to go.
I knew something was going to happen at a college campus, late night or early morning.
And
That
you
was-
just assumed it was UCLA.
Well, I mean, UCLA had been kind of the center of the more intense stuff.
Yeah.
I had,
Oh, by the way, people were saying that they were upset that there was graffiti on the walls of Royce Hall. Did you see a lot of graffiti?
oh, there was so
Or
much
vandalism?
Graffiti. There was a lot of graffiti.
A lot of graffiti.
Yeah.
From both sides, do you
No.
think tagged it?
No, it
Who do you think tagged it?
It was inside the encampment.
I was able to visit the encampment just a few hours
Okay.
after it had been cleared. So to be clear, like that graffiti had definitely been there.
That graffiti is there. While I was in there, I saw graffiti happenings.
Do you have a position on graffiti in campus for protest? Are you pro or you're against it?
My position is, I don't know, man. I just work here.
I mean, listen, I'm not much of a protester, but when I do protest, I try to bring people along.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that.
Graffiti isn't how you get people along? That's what you're saying?
It's not how I do it.
Right. I don't have a problem with graffitiing Tommy Trojan. But I can see where alumni of UCLA are like, you're losing me when you tag up that beautiful building.
It is what it is.
Okay. So,
I mean, listen, I also think that if you're going to have a protest, you should be more open with the press. That would be a criticism I have. I would think hopefully
of the encampment?
yeah.
Because there
I
was
think it should be, if you have your cause,
right?
be kind of open about it and not worry about the media twisting it.
Yeah.
The reason why is if you're not out there, somebody else is out there filling that void.
Right. Because there was video of a guy from Channel 5, KTLA, who was trying to get into the encampment in the daytime. And actually the fire department was with him too, trying to get in. And two unofficial security guards of the encampment were like, no, you can't. None of you guys can come through. And the fire department was like, we're coming through. And did what they had to do. And so the Channel 5 guy goes, okay, I'm coming through too. And they're like, no, talk to the media person. And press don't really want to talk to the media person all the time. But he was being polite. He was being a good guy. So to your point, it did seem like their approach to the press was problematic.
I mean, listen, it's a choice they have to make. I think you can write your own narrative or let somebody else write it for you.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, on my end, here's what I'll say.
Did either of you guys talk to the media person from the encampment?
No.
I had a very brief unofficial talk with a media person that was really specific, that was very specific, sort of numbers-based questions that were kind of answered.
Right.
I mean, really basic, like, hey, did anyone get hurt?
Right.
Yes or no,
And what was the answer?
The answer was yes, and I was like, is anybody being transported or anything like that? And the answer was no.
Okay.
But that was, to be clear, that was Monday. That was the day before the large counter protest.
Okay.
So I can say this, right? A narrative is going to be written about you, regardless of what your movement is, left, right, in between, or something else entirely. I mean,
Yeah.
honesty is always the best policy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, people appreciate warts and all, I think.
Mhm.
Style reporting, that's the kind of reporting, that's the only kind of reporting I'm interested in
Yep.
these days is saying, like, here's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is there's people that are less respectful than I am, right? I mean, my thing is if there's 30 people telling me not to go in, I'm not exactly going to, like, get involved in fighting to get a picture of some graffiti or whatever. It's just not worth my time. That's not really what I was trying to cover anyway. At the end of the day, to be honest with you, I think it's pretty clear that I can only speak to the UCLA encampment. It's pretty clear that their relationship with the press was negative from the get-go, and as things went by, even a communique or two, a press release, something,
Yeah.
probably would have done nothing but help them.
Yeah.
And the other thing is people are going to get in there, whether you want them to or not, right? Wouldn't it be nice if it was a mutual conversation instead of somebody recording secretly, that kind of thing? At the end of the day, even people that disagree with you, talk to them.
But again, a lot of these are kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
listen,
This is their first. This
listen.
is their first rodeo.
Listen, there's two aspects of this. First off, right, they want to control the narrative. They think it's going to be twisted against them. The second part is there did reach a point. I can understand coming into that Tuesday that they were worried about people getting in there literally at that point for their own safety.
Right.
At that point, I was a lot more understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, before that, I was kind of like, come on, guys.
No. Before
Yeah.
that, it was actually I thought they were making a mistake, but it reached a certain point where anybody who came in there was going to start trouble. But yeah,
But KTLA is not there to start trouble.
listen, that's not the way I would have done things. But I can't. But at the same time, a lot of these guys, it's their first rodeo with
Right.
this stuff, and yeah, actually, KTLA is there to start trouble. If you want to actually, them and ABC 7. So yeah, no.
You have a problem with ABC 7?
Yeah, they're terrible.
The helicopter?
No, ABC 7
Who at ABC? Mark Brown?
They came after me and my child. So I mean,
Oh, that's true.
They come after. They
But
do
that
that.
was-
That's all the time. That's every day.
Was that Leanne Sutter?
No, Leon Sutter, I get along with her great.
She cleared it up.
She
Who was the person?
I cleared it up.
No, but who was the person who tried to come after you?
The two people who got fired.
Good for you.
Yeah, but that's not the point. This is the culture. This is how they treat every story that way. They're sensational. ABC 7,
Huh.
the worst.
The worst?
The worst.
Worse than Fox LA?
Listen. Actually, yes.
What?
Actually, yes.
Finally, William and I disagree on something.
I'm right on this.
You're right. Okay, let's talk about the arrest. You guys show up at 6 in the morning. By the way,
No.
bravo.
No.
You were there at 5:30? You were there at 5?
Yeah, 5:30. I got there at 5:30.
Bravo. You can't get me out of this house at 5:30 in the morning. Why? Why are you there to cover
Because
this?
the story was there.
Why is this that important to you?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
I'm not kidding you.
I know, seriously.
Here's
To
the
me,
thing.
the
Here's
story
thing.
was over.
No, the
right.
story was not over.
From my perspective.
The story
from my
was a
perspective,
protest, and here's
But
another
you don't
one.
even know what the protest is.
Listen, I knew enough.
the fact that I don't know what it is means it's probably something
Yes,
that's worth
come on now.
covering.
Was it worth covering? In
Well,
retrospect?
I mean,
Yes,
Why? What made it a story to you?
a protest at UCLA.
That's enough?
Yes, that's what we were there for. Stop.
To be honest with you,
We watched protests happen the week before where
Yes.
it led to violence, and this is the very next protest. You think that's not to be a story to cover? Every reporter in this town would want to be there for that. This is the next protest after violence, the very next one.
This was a protest in the garage?
No,
Where was the protest?
who knows? You're gonna have
But
to
it
ask
ended
someone.
up in the garage.
No, it didn't end up in the garage.
Well, how did you
I
end
think
up
it
in the garage?
started in
That's
the
where
garage. I
that
think
was
is
the
where
meeting
it started.
spot.
I think
That was a meeting spot.
whatever they were doing, it got stopped right in its tracks.
Oh, so they were
I'm
preparing
assuming.
to actually protest.
That was the meeting spot for the protest.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact.
And the-
but
and
that
the
I know that
cops-
for
makes sense.
I know
Okay.
that for a fact.
Somehow the cops also learned this and
Yes.
showed up there.
Yes.
And you guys just happened to be there. Did you think cops were going to be there?
There was a helicopter overhead.
Okay.
Listen, I had an idea where things were going to be happening at.
Yeah.
There was a helicopter overhead, and the cop cars come flying into the parking garage. You tell
Okay.
me.
Right. So you know something's going down. And you love cop cars flying anywhere.
I don't.
You know, that's the interesting thing about you. You'll be walking Gizmo, and you're like, we just wanted to have a nice walk.
Yeah, exactly.
And these cops show up, and I've got to do this.
Yeah.
You have this like feeling that you always have to be there.
Yes.
I mean, we're grateful for you being there.
That's just the way it is. He knows my rule. Everybody knows the rules. If there's a police stop, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be the last one to leave. It's period.
And you felt the same way about this protest.
Listen, again, we just watched a major national event at UCLA happen, and this is the very next protest. It's not hard to figure out that this is a major thing to be at.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
I'm not
I didn't
going to
even
stop you from
yeah,
doing
and
it.
look,
No.
here's the thing, right?
If there's another big protest at UCLA, it's going to be a big thing. It's escalated every single time. So yes, this is a big deal every time.
Why were these particular protesters arrested in a garage? What had they done illegally?
Conspiracy to commit burglary, according to the UCLA PD.
What were they going to burgle?
I don't know. You have to ask them.
I don't know.
Isn't that what you were charged for?
Well, that's what I was threatened with a charge for.
What's
yeah,
this
sorta.
pink paper that I'm seeing
So
here?
that is what's called a prisoner's receipt. So essentially, what that means is, I was in jail. I got my fingerprints taken. There's a charge written on there.
Do you get your mugshot? Can you ask for your mugshot?
It's actually really hard to get your own mugshot, believe it or not.
So TMZ can get it no problem. But the actual
Well,
person has
in the
a problem?
city of LA, it's pretty difficult. I mean, I'm sure you could, if you had a lawyer, you could get it pretty quick.
William, have you ever taken a mugshot here in LA?
Yeah.
Have you gotten your mugshot?
No, you can't. Listen, you can't. The only way you can ever get a mugshot or any type of picture or any type of audio or any type of video from the LAPD is with a subpoena. That's it.
Your own mugshot?
I will say this again. The only way you will ever get a picture or a video is by that. If they allow it for you, then they've now set a precedence where they have to give it out to others. They will not do anything without a subpoena. This is the LAPD policy. This is law enforcement policy.
Do you agree with
statewide.
this policy?
No, of course not.
All right, good. I'm not a crazy person.
No.
You were making me feel crazy for a second.
They're not giving out anything. You can have a car accident right
But they'll
out
leak
here.
it.
No, listen, they won't leak it. If you could have a car accident out here.
Yeah.
And the police captured that car accident on a video and had nothing to do with them, just happened to.
Yeah.
They are not giving that up without a subpoena because the union would flip out. They would say once you allow it, then they're going to start asking for it over and over again. They are not giving an inch on
But
that.
they leak out body cam
They don't
footage
leak
all
out.
the time.
They do not leak out body footage. They
How does that
They release it. They don't leak it.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
The chief of police can release any video at their discretion. When it suits their need, they'll release it, but they don't leak it.
So that's why we need you to be the next chief of police. So you decide to come
Yeah, so I'm on UCLA campus.
You hadn't slept all night.
Hadn't slept all night. I was like,
Jesus.
all right, whatever this is, it's not going to be long. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, whatever this is, like, I don't see a gigantic group or anything. So, like,
Right.
honestly, a big part of me was like, shit, am I in the wrong spot? Like,
Oh.
so I'm walking around campus. Eventually,
Are you guys texting each other? Do you know that he's going to be there?
I saw him, and I was like, oh, all right,
I'm in the right spot.
I guess so. So we just kind of hung out by a bus stop, really, because I had seen some like heads poking out of the garage.
Heads poking out of the garage, helicopter overhead.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was questioning whether the helicopter was there to get footage for the morning news of the old encampment.
Right.
Didn't know. If I had no idea what the action was going to be. I thought maybe they would set up a new encampment.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, I knew I had to be out there by 7:30 to pick up my dog.
Where's Gizmo?
It was I had to pick him up 2 hours later, and I was thinking I was going to be gone out of there.
Yeah.
By 7:30.
Right.
And little we know.
So you too thought it was going to be a little quickie.
I thought they were going to maybe set up an encampment, whatever they were going to do. I wasn't going to stay around all day for it. I thought I would be back later on after work.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually bought a 24-hour parking ticket, knowing that I would come back later in the day.
Nice.
So,
What's really funny is I bought like 2 hours because I was trying to be cheap. And one of the first things that I did after they got the cuffs on me is I had to shift my weight and pull my phone out, and I changed it to a 24-hour pass.
You could do that from your phone?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So at
So
UCLA, they use one of the third-party apps for their
good.
parking.
Yeah.
So if your time expires, you can just real quick
So great.
buy more.
So great.
usually has good parking.
Do they?
Expensive parking.
Expensive.
But good parking.
$27 a day, but what, $7 for the first hour? Or is it $9? I can't remember. I think
it's 9.
You know what's
I don't
so
know.
bad about that is there's not like public parking, like real,
There is,
like
there
street
is,
parking.
but you kind of have to know. So the street parking is what you got to pay for. Ironically enough, there is a not all of the garages there are free. Number 3, you can just drive right into.
You're saying in the village, like over by Whole Foods.
No, actually, there's one like on campus.
Yeah, on campus free.
Number 3 is free. I think I saw some pay stations at some of the other ones, but number 3
Okay.
is free.
But
I
why
think number 2 is free
But
too.
why shake down
but
people for $27 at a college? Like,
Honestly,
what's that about?
I mean, I can only speak to what I was there for, which was to cover protests. And
now I'm suddenly into the vandalism. Okay, I'm sorry. We keep distracting ourselves.
But yeah, I mean, so the parking. The
So
parking.
you show
was
up.
expensive.
You did the smart move.
I show up. Didn't do the smart move originally, but was able to do the smart move. So we're seeing activity in this parking garage. We see a helicopter go up. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, this is probably the thing, right? Whatever the thing is, But I also have kind of, when you cover protests, one of the things that's always tough, right, is you don't want to accidentally interfere,
Right.
with what's going to happen, right? So if there's what I kind of detect as kind of a secret action as a journalist, that can be a little bit tricky because obviously I don't want to like blow up their spot because
Yep.
then that's not journalism
Yep.
and that's interfering, right? So stayed a healthy distance. Eventually, kind of kept making our way closer, and then I would say around 5:56-ish, 5:55, all of a sudden saw a bunch of UC police cruisers, like kind of going through after.
I saw one pull in, and I followed it in. And I saw him going upstairs, and I just went up the steps to the third floor, where I saw the cruiser pulling up on the crew of people, like 3 dozen. And they all kind of turned their back to the cop. I didn't know if they were playing possum or if it was just like an individual protest. Cop got out of the car, went to his trunk, got something, then another one pulled up. And I was recording. I was wondering where Sean was at. Where were you at?
So I saw like 4 kids running out of I shouldn't call them kids, 4 student age people. So I saw them running out of the parking garage. And then I saw this cop yelling like, stop, demanding that they show school ID.
Oh.
So that was the moment I was like, oh, okay, right space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I think they got away. It's unclear because part of the issue is as soon as I kind of watched them get about halfway through, all of a sudden I realized he's yelling "stop" at me.
Oh.
So I'm like, all right, well, sounds like I should probably stop, you know. So it turns out to be a University of California police officer, lieutenant actually. William, you his name.
Lieutenant Davis.
Lieutenant Davis. So he, you know,
William's smiling, by the way.
So he starts.
It's not a good smile.
It's an all-knowing smile.
No, it's
It's a what smile?
It's Lieutenant Davis has some stuff coming to him smile.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, so he, you know, so he stops me and he immediately asks me, "Are you student or faculty here?" And you know, I'm like, "Well, I'm a journalist." You know, and he goes, "Are you student or faculty here?" And I'm like, "Again, I'm a journalist." And he's like, "Well, what's your purpose here?" And I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on, right? All I know is, you know, it's my responsibility as a journalist to not blow up somebody's spot necessarily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, not interfere positively or negatively, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you're in a museum, right? Don't touch the painting, right? That's my goal, right? Mm-hmm. So, and also, you know, I'm a journalist. I don't owe you a fucking explanation, right?
It's a public campus.
Right. It's a public campus, right? And it's, you know, I don't have to explain myself to you. Yeah. So then he said, you know, so then he's like, well, let me see your ID. And he's, you know, the thing about police officers, right, is sometimes you're in a situation, especially, you know, I'm on the job, right? I'm on the clock, so to speak. Yep. Thinking to myself, all right, let's get through this the easy way, right? Because this guy's pretty aggro. You know, let's just get this over with, you know. So yeah. I'm like, hey man, like, you know, no need to be rude. Like, what's going on here? And he's like, I need to see your ID. And so I go, okay, well, am I being detained? You know, and because I'm thinking he's gonna say no, and I'm gonna be like, all right, fuck off. You know what I mean? And then I can go about my merry day.
Yeah.
And he says yes. So, you know, he demands my ID. Ironically enough, I was so, you know, kind of surprised by everything. I accidentally gave him my gas card instead of my ID originally. But, you know, and he's mad about that. Who cares? You know, and I'm like, hey, like, you know, get whatever you're doing. Can you get on with it? Because clearly something's going on.
Yeah.
And I would like to make money off of that, please. You know, I'm trying to get the shot because I'm thinking to myself, you know, this is essentially, you know.
Do you have a camera on you? Like,
I honestly, so I often use my phone for protests because, you know, I'm not trying to get expensive camera equipment damaged. And also, it's nice to be mobile, you know.
Yep. I'm just trying to figure out how this guy actually could believe you that you're the press.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a lanyard
around. Because he's self-identified.
I know, but these people are... We know.
Look, I have a lanyard around my neck. You know, it didn't have a press pass, but it did have business cards.
Good.
You know, and I'm saying like, hey, I can show you bylines, like whatever you gotta see. I really gotta get out of this, right?
Yeah.
So then, you know, he's taking forever, and I'm like, can I speak to a supervisor? He goes, supervisor's busy, and I'm like, all right, well, you got about 2 minutes before I'm gonna get lawyers involved, because this is like, at this point, I'm trying to get the footage, right? Whatever's going on. I don't even know, right? Yeah. You know, ostensibly, I'm like, probably there's a detainment. For all I know, you know, the kids and the cops are, you know, fighting each other with laser weapons. For all I know, right? I'm thinking, damn, you know, who knows, right? So then, after I say, you know, the word lawyer, it's weird how sometimes you say the word lawyer and suddenly things go a little quicker.
Yep.
You know? So I said, you got about 2 minutes before I get lawyers involved. And then all of a sudden, he goes, all right, you're released. And then he gives me, so here's the thing. So he gives me a warning for a curfew violation. Because I was like, what is this curfew you're talking about? So apparently there was a curfew between, is it midnight to 6 a.m.?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's no signs posted. There is nothing that would let me know that. Yeah. Right? Throughout the campus, as far as I know.
And you're there at 5:58?
Yeah, so I'm detained at 5:58 is because I recorded the conversation. My detainment was at 5:58.
Okay.
Now, look, I don't know any cop that wouldn't go, all right, I'll cut you a break, right?
Yeah.
2 minutes before curfew is pretty realistic. On top of that, again, okay, there's a curfew. I'm a 37-year-old man, right? And this is a public campus, right? Whatever I'm there to do at the end of the day, it's 6 a.m. I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
And also, maybe if you don't want people to violate curfew, maybe tell them about the curfew. Maybe have some sort of signage somewhere.
Listen, even beyond all that, this could have been happening at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
There's a news event happening on campus at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the curfew isn't up until 6 o'clock. You have an obligation to be there to cover that news story.
Yes.
Can you imagine what would happen if I worked for, if I was on assignment, right? if my editor tells me, oh, it's 5:15 a.m., right? I need you to get down there. Can you imagine what would happen if my editor heard, oh, I can't because curfew doesn't end until 6 a.m.?
That's right.
That editor would immediately put me on a do not call list.
I have never been in a newsroom where there's an excuse not to go somewhere.
Right. I mean,
No matter what it is.
Listen, the day before this, I had tweeted that I am perfectly willing to get arrested to cover a news event.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do it every time.
Yeah.
And we have done it plenty of times.
Did there turn out to be a curfew?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yes, there was a curfew.
Yeah, there's a
It
curfew.
was unimportant and it was irrelevant.
How did they announce their curfew?
They sent out an email to the staff and to students.
Who, ironically enough, are the people who are not subject to the curfew.
Actually, I found out it might be. They may have been.
Okay, all right.
But the curfew is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Okay.
The point is I'm stopped for
Yes.
a very silly reason.
Yes.
Right? So eventually he lets me go, he lets me go. I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. It seems like what's going on upstairs is the thing to see. So I go upstairs and what I see is 40 ostensibly college students. I think almost all of them turned out to be college students. With, they're up against the corner. It's a dark parking lot. They're detained. I see, and they're getting flex cuffed.
You say upstairs like the third or fourth floor
Yeah, so it's
of the
technically
garage?
the third floor. It's up one flight of stairs, but it's actually the third floor.
Okay.
So they pulled in. They saw the kids over there, and I'm gonna call the students.
Yep.
They told everybody to drop what they had, drop their backpacks, drop their poles. They all did. Then they told them to get up against the wall. Then they told them to sit down on the ground. They were all asking what they're being detained for. They would not tell them what they were being detained for. They told me to get back behind a car to give them space. They said, ask me, are you part of this? And I said, no. They said, go behind the car. I went behind the car.
Did they say the same for you?
Didn't say a word to me. Didn't say go back. Didn't say go to the left. Didn't say go to the right. Literally not a word.
But it sounds like at this time it is 6 o'clock. So that this
So at this point,
fake
by the time I
curfew
was
is
upstairs,
over now,
by
right?
the time I was upstairs, it was
the
6:01 ish.
The detainment began at 5:57.
Oh, did it?
5:57. But their original detainment, they said, was for a curfew violation. And then they changed it to a failure to disperse. But they never gave a dispersal order.
But I still don't understand the dotted line to burglary.
Listen, before we get to that point, right? So they detained all these people. All right? Myself, Sean,
Yep.
2 legal observers at the
Yep.
time.
Was one of them the mayor candidate?
No.
I thought she was there too.
She was there.
She arrived there.
She
later,
came.
I think.
She got there later.
Okay.
And we were filming.
When you say legal observer, they have
NLG
a pink hat or
observers.
something,
Yeah.
or green hat.
Yeah, the legal observers.
So the cops should know who everybody is, right?
Cops do whatever they want.
Right.
So we were observing and recording. Us 2 were recording, Sean and I.
Yep.
Legal observers were doing their thing. Finally, Gina Viola showed up, and then a student showed up to record. And that went on for, I think I recorded for about 45 minutes. And then out of nowhere, some sheriffs showed up in full riot gear. They had a discussion with the the UCLA cops. They instructed the sheriffs to stand behind us against the wall. And I thought that was strange. I had a feeling it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I was kind of like, I took a shot very intentionally, like right before the shot that you saw on Twitter where I'm being arrested, where I just kind of turned around. You know what I mean? Just because at that point I was like, this is a little weird. There is one thing that I would like to mention is this is how under control the situation is, right? They let a guy walk past all of this, go into his car,
Yeah, and move it.
and move his car.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously if this was any sort of dangerous scenario or
Right.
something like that, they certainly wouldn't let a guy just like drive past.
When they position the sheriffs behind you, at that point did you say I should probably leave? Or I
You
guess
couldn't. You weren't going to be allowed to leave.
really?
I suspect
They blocked. They blocked. If you look at the positioning, they were technically we were kettled at that point. We just didn't. They weren't coming to arrest us, but we were kettled.
and you were willing to be arrested, so you didn't want to.
I didn't care.
Okay.
I didn't want to be arrested, but I mean, I was willing.
Yeah,
Did you want to leave?
no. I mean, at the
Because it
end
seems
of
to
the
me
day,
that the story's over.
yeah,
No,
well,
the story was not over. Absolutely not.
Okay.
They were going to listen. They were detained, and nobody knew what they were detained for. So the story
Okay.
was not over.
All right.
yeah, you got to remember, neither of us knew like what those protesters' plan was, or even if there was a plan.
The protesters, a lot of
and-
them didn't know.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I get the sense that if I had tried to leave, they probably would have told me that I can't.
No,
I didn't, but
I'm positive. A legal observer tried leaving, and they went and got her. If you look at the video that I have,
that's right.
they had
yeah.
us kettled. We were kettled. They were not. They were standing guard. They were not going to let us leave, and they started arresting us one by one. They started with Sean. Now you have to understand. Again, this was 45 minutes into what was going on, and they started the arrest. They started with him. They arrested Sean. Then they arrested.
All of the protesters were flex cuffed at this point.
Yeah.
Like they were on the ground.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been a more in control situation.
Right.
And that's the reason why they started arresting us. So then they arrested Gina. And then they came and arrested me.
Okay, so I'm glad I brought up Gina because she showed up late. So what's her crime?
She was charged with conspiracy to commit burglary.
Have we gotten to the bottom of this burglary suspicion? Like what?
Cops make stuff up, man.
Burglary of what though?
I don't know.
We still don't know.
No one's been able
There
to
were-
say. I can say a few things, and I can't stress enough that I don't know if this is related. I
Okay.
don't know. The kids didn't tell me anything. I didn't ask, right? Because at
Right.
that point, I'm in jail. I'm not really trying to like. You're not going to ask a kid what his plan was
You're
if
not?
you're in jail, right? With him, right?
Because it seems like you're rubbing it in.
No, because
No.
for all I know, the room's bugged, or there's
Oh.
a jailer nearby. Who knows?
I've
right?
never been in jail. That's so smart. I didn't know.
Yeah. Never discuss. This is my PSA. Never discuss the crime you committed while you were incarcerated.
There were a lot of police cars flying around while we were in there. There were a lot of police cars flying up and down the street that were unrelated to what we were at.
Yeah. So while I was being transported away, I did hear over the radio that the kids had taken over. I don't remember which building.
More. They took over.
Yeah. So look, maybe they were involved in that. Maybe they were trying to get another building. Maybe they were just, for all I know, right? And I mean, probably not, but maybe they were literally just gonna hang out in the parking lot and smoke a bunch of marijuana.
Right.
I don't know, right? Probably that's not the case, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say that the police claim to have found some bolt cutters and some large chains, and I think some super glue, and some sort of book that's like, well, and it's really funny to me because the book is like called like How to Occupy a Building or something like that. And I do want to be clear as a journalist, just as a human being,
Yeah.
I don't think a book should ever be evidence, right?
Yes.
I just, that sets
What
a
about
really,
hip hop lyrics?
hip hop lyrics? I also don't think that those should be evidence unless my hip hop lyrics were literally describing what I am about to do,
And
and
the
then
date.
I did that thing, right?
Right.
Maybe you have a RICO charge or a conspiracy charge then.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? But to be clear, like if I have a book that's, say I have, all right, here's a controversial book, right? The Anarchist Cookbook.
Of course.
Right? And I get, and I get caught with, some equipment that maybe
Some
I
fertilizer.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a more extreme example, but sure,
Uh-huh.
right? Me having fertilizer and a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook,
Yes.
I don't think that the Anarchist Cookbook is evidence, right?
Good,
Maybe
good.
Maybe the fertilizer
Right.
is, right? Probably.
Yeah.
But it's just, it sets a really bad precedent,
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've got some books that I don't agree with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's specifically to study a topic that I need to know more about, right?
Yes.
And that's, as far as I know, pretty much all the evidence they have. They haven't come out and said like what building or anything like that. So my guess is, I mean, this is again, and I don't have evidence of this.
Yeah.
At some point, the protesters were probably, maybe, given what they had on them.
Listen, they were taking a haul down on the other side of the campus.
That was the plan.
I don't know.
You
asked me the
think
plan.
it's a- I
I'm
think
telling you, as a matter of, here's the facts we know. Another group took a haul
Yeah.
on campus around the same time. That's what we know.
Okay.
You know, it's funny is I remember
But
being.
is that burglary? That's trespassing.
Well, that's the thing
right?
about it, right? Where those kids, they were allowed to leave.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, they were allowed to leave. Were they charged? No. But yet these kids were.
Huh.
Exactly.
What do you think was the reason?
Reason for what?
The kids that got arrested, why them?
I don't know. You have to ask them. You don't ask me to rationalize anything the police did that day. Nothing they did made sense.
There was a lot of, I got to say, you know, between me and William, there's a lot of knowledge on police procedures and things like that. I got to tell you, almost nothing they did gave me a sense that there was competence, professionalism, a plan, or even really an understanding of basic roles and functions.
Or the law. The guy running the place, David, the guy who detained him, was the guy who was running the scene. He was the one who was charging he was the reason why we were getting arrested under specific charges that made no sense. This is a guy who's just not very competent. And this is a guy who's a lieutenant who in the UCLA PD may be in the top 4 or 5 ranking people. This was running it. But then look at who ran the operations night before. They're incompetent.
You're in the car heading to the jail. They put you in a car.
Yeah, so I think there's one thing that bears mentioning. So there were about 44 people heading to jail. Sheriff's bus holds 40. So, and William, you should probably talk about the fact that you were like taken to a different part.
Listen,
of the parking lot.
when everybody was detained, I started calling them out for their response to arrest 40-something people who were being nonviolent in the garage. But where were they the other night when all mayhem was breaking loose? And I was saying that loudly. I was saying it over and over again. And I also noticed that there were some cameras showing up from the news. And the next thing you know, because they wanted to shut me up, they threw me in a car so that I couldn't speak. Little did they know I was live streaming, and my live stream was never cut off.
That was the best. Did you know that you were live streaming?
I was hoping I was. I had a feeling I was. I tried to protect it because when they came to arrest me, I was live streaming. The phone I was live streaming with, I put in my pocket and held my other phone with my other hand so they'd think that was the only one I was using. And it kept on rolling. But you have to understand, for the next 2 hours, no one really had an idea of why they were being even detained.
Yeah.
It began shifting. They told me I was being detained under 148 PC.
Yeah.
Which essentially is... what they were saying is I was filming the police, and by filming the police, I interfered. And the reason why I say that is because I've seen other cops use that exact definition. They misunderstand that law. That law says that you can't interfere with a police investigation, or if you're involved with resisting arrest. But what I've been noticing is cops have been citing that Hollywood Station, that if there is any investigation going on and you're filming, you are interfering with that investigation. But if you actually look at 148 G, it says that filming the police, recording the police is explicitly allowed under the law. There's that carve out for it.
Yeah.
So I just think this is a case where they don't understand the law.
Right. And so which cops arrested you for that? CHP or UC?
UCLA PD.
So we need to educate the UC police
No, they
department.
need to be fired.
Well, before we fire them, we have to
They
educate
fire
them.
them, you educate them.
Oh, okay. I like to tell somebody why I'm...
Look, I went to go file a complaint over the situation the other night at UCLA. There was, after 5 o'clock, you have to file a complaint over the phone.
Yeah.
Right? I went there to go file a complaint against Lieutenant Davis. Guess who answered the phone call?
We heard it.
Lieutenant Davis.
Yeah.
Right?
That was a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... Was it a great conversation? It was
Yes,
it was-
because he knew he couldn't take that complaint.
well,
It
he's
was good TV. I
yeah,
will say that. I watched it.
It was TV, but I don't know if it was a great conversation. It was no, there was no value in it.
I'm here for entertainment,
Yeah, I mean, for entertainment value, yes, but
and you
from
provide lots of entertainment.
getting information from it. But I think even more troubling is why is Sean, who Davis documented was actually outside, why was he detained for conspiracy, and not just detained, arrested for conspiracy to commit burglary? Why?
Right,
What's the rationale behind that? And Gina Viola, who showed up 15 minutes later.
right.
And the young girl who was walking through and just happened to start film. And the NLG crew. I was the only one charged with the 148 PC. Everybody, all of them were charged with conspiracy. How do you make sense of that? You don't. None of it makes sense.
Who do you think this cop would talk to? What journalist do you think he would talk to explain any of this?
He had a press conference.
Did anybody ask him that question?
Yeah, they asked him all this stuff. He got annoyed and he walked away. Everybody was calling him out.
Nice. Good.
I mean, it's not good.
No, I'm glad he got annoyed and walked out like
Yeah,
a coward.
being annoyed is one thing, but that's not accountability.
Right.
And this is a guy who's been running. He may have been running operations there that night.
Don't
when
call
all
a
this
press
stuff is
conference
going on.
unless you know what you're going to say. And you know what they're going to ask you.
No, he said what he had to say. He said he charged me with 148 PC and everybody else with conspiracy, and in that it'll figure them. Everything will figure itself out.
Yeah.
It certainly did.
But in the process, it violated a number of rights
Right.
between both of us. We were both illegally detained,
Yeah.
illegally searched,
Yeah.
falsely arrested,
Mm-hmm.
illegal detainment of our phones
Yep.
when we're operating as press. Now, that's a big deal.
Do they recognize you as the press?
It doesn't matter. I'll tell them.
I'm just asking. Do they
I
recognize
don't
you
know.
as the press?
You ask them.
Do they recognize you as the press, Mr.
They arrested him.
Well,
I
obviously
know,
not.
but still.
If they recognized him in the press, they wouldn't have
arrest
arrested him.
press all the time.
No, they don't. Where? In L.A.
Josie Huang just got $700,000.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. You say every
It was 2 years
a lot
ago.
has changed. No, a lot has changed since then. The LAPD policy has changed since then, so it doesn't happen all the time. No, it doesn't happen all the time.
Okay. I feel like I see the press being arrested all the time.
there's been a few things. So
And they're always wrong.
The press is not arrested all the time in here in LA.
There has
so the
been-
fact that it did happen makes it all the more troubling. This
Right.
is a unique situation. This is not something that happens all the time.
Do you
This is
say
unique.
troubling? Why do you
They
say
elected
troubling?
because they falsely arrested members of the press.
But when I hear troubling, I hear
they are falsely arrested members of the press. That's
I
troubling.
understand. No. I don't think it's troubling because I don't think that there's going to continue to be a pattern of this. Do you believe there's going to continue to
If
be
they
a pattern
did it
of this?
once, unless you hold them accountable, there will be. They arrested me for recording the police. What are we talking about here?
Which is
if
straight.
that's not troubling, in the year 2024, we're arresting people for filming. Come on, and if they're doing that now, do you think it's just magically stop now?
Do you think that was incompetence, or do you think that was something else?
That was malicious.
There we go.
I mean, but it's also incompetence too. It's all the same.
Because they knew who you were, and they wanted to punish you.
You're gonna have to ask them. They didn't want anybody filming them arrest. Let's stop. They did not want anybody documenting them arresting people. That's what
Yes.
anybody who was there documenting or observing it got arrested. Period.
Was Gina documenting?
Yeah, she was observing it. She said she was the police liaison.
Oh,
Yeah, everybody who was there documented. No one. Once we were arrested, there was no longer anybody who had vantage point of them searching the people. Yes, cameras showed up. They taped off the area. But no one could be close anywhere near to it.
so you guys have the only footage of this?
Yes.
Fuck yeah! Isn't that nice?
I would imagine.
I mean, it's actually not nice because I have 45 minutes where it lasted for 2 hours in that garage or 3 hours. We weren't able to actually get video of it. He got some from his pocket, but that should have all been documented from beginning to end. So that's not nice.
But
You watch my video, it's a black screen for an hour and 15 minutes.
But to me, it's still proof of what went down, which they don't want, according to you.
I mean, that's the reason why they arrested us. What message are they sending? What message are they sending to the kids who they're arresting, the students, that they're going to seize your phones? They do that to make people think twice about going out and protesting. They might seize my phone. They might try to tie me into a conspiracy. This is all misuse of the legal system.
Yes. But it's never going to stop the actual press. You two. You're just going to have
Where's
more
the-
I mean,
cameras.
it stopped me for the whole
The
goddamn
press in
day.
LA. Listen, no. Actually, let's say
You
Here's the
had
thing.
the story.
No. Here's the thing, though, right?
if they seized our phones for a year,
Yeah.
which what they wanted to do, that would have an impact.
Right.
And then it would scare off other reporters. There's not a lot of reporters out here with backbone. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, I didn't know.
And so if they start hearing that, hey, you know what, these guys got arrested, it might scare them off. So that's, you know,
And to be clear, right, whatever the hell happened at, what is it, Moore Hall?
yeah.
Sounds like I probably would have gotten some
No
good
one
footage
knows.
out of that.
Right. No one
Right?
knows what happened there because the press wasn't there. We could have been there.
Right.
So no, none of that is good.
And none of those protesters were filming at Moore?
No
I guess not.
protesters.
We haven't seen it.
I haven't seen a lick of footage of it.
Right.
Exactly.
Not-
That's a
not a
problem.
single piece.
Like I say all the time.
I'm
if
not
you
saying
don't,
it doesn't exist.
if
I'm
you
just saying
don't
I
have video of it, it didn't happen.
Right. Right. Okay. So you're in jail now, Mr. Cat with News.
So, look, I would say we were on the floor detained, or I was on the floor detained for what, an hour and a half?
What's the floor?
No.
Literally the
The
floor,
floor
of the
parking garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at one point I was able to, because, and again, this speaks to the lack of, let's say, quality control. They didn't successfully zip tie me. They didn't zip tie me correctly. So, which again, you know, I'm obviously like, it was nice to not have my, you know, hands zip tied really hard. But they had zip tied me and so basically backwards. So I was able to just kind of move my hand and live tweet my arrest for a little while.
Really?
Yeah. So I was able to release video, the video that while I was sitting on the floor, I was able to successfully tweet out the video that I had taken while they arrested
This
me.
is amazing. Okay, so hold on. Are you trying to hide your phone? Like, are you crouched over?
No, nothing like that. Look, you know, once you're arrested, you know, you have to be wary of how you move physically and things like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean, cops are jumpy.
Yep.
They're just a jumpy people,
Yep.
right? So you always kind of want to be careful.
Yep.
That being said, they were so sort of haphazard that I basically was like, fuck it. Grabbed my phone, tweeted it out real quick. Was able to tweet out with one hand a couple videos. And then I went live, and then the officer, as soon as I went off of live on Instagram, the officer basically grabbed my phone and kicked it away.
He saw that you were playing with your phone.
Yeah. So there was also I just got sent video from another angle, which I haven't had a chance to release. Yeah, they zip tied Willie up real bad, real hard, right?
Extremely tight.
Yeah. So the entire time I'm on the
Extremely
floor,
tight.
The Jew gets away with it. The black man, nope.
I'm staying out of that.
This is a black guy who did it. So that means nothing.
No.
Yeah, get over that, man. Get over that thinking that some black cop is going to make a difference. This is a black cop who did it. McIntyre.
UC cop McIntyre?
Sergeant.
McIntyre.
That is. I'm on the floor, right?
No,
Give or take.
longer than that.
Longer
Hold
than
on.
that?
But listen,
All right.
listen,
Audience.
listen, we were
William is very upset right now.
No, listen, we were detained at 6:30. The buses didn't start moving till 11:40.
What?
Was it that long?
Yes.
God damn.
I was in the back
Why?
of a police car in a tight space for all that
For 5 hours.
I didn't. It took 2 hours before I learned why they were even detaining me.
Do they give you Miranda rights when they at any point?
They only need to give you Miranda rights if they're asking you questions. They don't have to give you Miranda
Oh.
rights. I know people think that you get arrested. It's only when they ask questions.
Okay.
So you're usually gonna get that from a detective.
So you could be zip tied in the back of a car for 5
Listen,
hours.
here's the process. After that, right? I went into a bus. Sean went into a car. But when we got to Van Nuys, I sat in the back of sat in that bus, a tight spot, for the next hour and a half on the bus. Before they took me off the bus, then we had to sit in the hot sun, out in the yard on these folding chairs.
Yeah.
Van Nuys in the afternoon is not. That's a rough. It's rough out there.
I can't imagine in the summertime. I can't imagine. It was brutal.
You think this is intentional?
Our arrests?
No, to leave you in the sun.
There was 40 people. I don't know. You probably. I don't know. I don't know.
They love being slow.
That's the slowest I've ever dealt with a mass.
I assume they
I would
love
say
being
that.
slow because it's overtime or it's close to overtime.
Like,
The slower
listen,
you are,
in 2020, right? You sometimes had hundreds of people going in and out of a booking station, and it would take like a couple hours,
yeah,
right? This was 40,
right. So it was intentional.
just 40. So I'm not going to say it's intentional. I am going to say I saw a lot of people up there that had no idea what they were doing. I mean, I saw
Cops who didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
This is a UCLA PD. They're not used to arresting 40 people. I will say that.
Neither is LAPD apparently, because they had detectives that were completely wrong about what people were being charged for. They didn't even know how to fill out basic booking forms. I saw them literally asking each other, like, "What do I do?"
Isn't this their job? Are they
Well-
all new?
No, listen. You're talking about small police force. This is UCLA PD. They're not
No,
used
this
to
is
this.
LAPD in the booking station.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but they just run the booking. Yeah, I know. But you got to understand, they're at the direction of when they're booking, they're taking the charges from what the UCLA PD does.
When I
and they're
worked at
getting
McDonald's,
information.
I knew how to do the grill in a week. These guys, part of your job as a cop is to put the people in the jail.
It's 40 people, man. It's going to take a while. It does. It just takes a while.
I guess if you're encouraged to be slow in every other part of your job, at McDonald's you're not. Hustle.
I'm less worried about how long it took to book than the fact that the charges itself. The booking time sucks. Yeah, we all agree. The last student left out of there around nearly 10 o'clock at night. All that sucks. But I'm not, the time it took isn't nearly as important as the reason why Sean, myself, and others were booked.
Right.
It's not jail, though. It's not
No,
jail.
it's not.
It's just
it's
a holding
not-
cell.
Yeah, it's just a holding
Yeah, it's a
cell.
holding cell. It is
How-
technically called.
It's a pin.
Yeah, it's
a
not.
pin.
How long were you in there for?
Half hour.
So this is when
I
people.
had already been released. When I got to that point, I was already in the process of being released. I was outside. They came and got me, brought me in, told me I would be released. You?
Yeah, so I was actually, because I was transported separately, I ended up being one of the first people to kind of go through the process, which didn't actually end up helping me that much. They ask you questions, they go through your shit.
What kind of questions?
What's that?
What kind of questions do they ask?
So most of them are like medical questions
Oh.
designed to basically make sure that you don't infect everybody there.
Oh.
And there's also a few that are
And liability reasons.
liability reasons, and there's also a few like, are you on drugs? Have you ever taken drugs? A lot of those are because somebody's, OD'd or had a medical issue in the past and they learned, but there's also questions like, are you a transgender and stuff like that, which is nominally designed to like figure out where you go next if you are, but it is kind of fucked up. So then I got fingerprinted like 5 times because they kept fucking it up.
They don't know what they're doing.
I've never in my life, but that's beyond the point is, so, I'm just sitting in the holding cell for hours, just kind of, there's no clock in there or nothing. So you're just kind of just staring at the wall and talking with the people in there.
Yeah.
It's not an ideal experience. It's not a good experience. It's not even an average
Were you guys
experience, but,
separated?
Yeah. I don't think I saw you.
I never. I went from outside to being essentially released and then put in a holding cell. I never actually made it to a holding cell while in custody.
So so I was busy getting my hands fingerprinted every goddamn hour.
You got a mugshot.
Yeah, got a mugshot.
Are you thinking about, do I smile with my mugshot or do I not smile with my mugshot?
I don't know. At that point, I'm just like worn out, and I'm just trying to get this thing over
Did you
with.
smile at your mugshot?
I don't remember.
You were that exhausted.
Yeah, I was really tired. You got to remember, I didn't sleep that night.
Why
So
didn't,
I'm on,
why,
like-
why didn't you sleep?
Because I wasn't sure what time it was going to happen. I was like, well, maybe it'll happen at 11. Maybe it'll happen at 2. So then I guess the same thing happened between me and you. Eventually, they brought snacks,
Oh, good.
which honestly they were pretty solid as far as holding cells.
What were they?
Sun chips and some fruit punch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you're starving,
Yeah.
actually, you're a fancy person deep down.
Well,
And so
so I don't know about that because I also grew up in the 414 in Milwaukee. You know what I mean? So there's always this. kind of weird thing where it's like, I love a bratwurst. I love a hot dog. I love Dr. Pepper. It's like my favorite.
Yeah, I think the key thing, though, is there was an intervention where they realized there were a number of emails sent, a number of calls placed, where they said that they have to release both he and I. They called him into the room.
Because you're press.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the important thing is, so this entire process, right, pretty much every time I see a cop, I'm asking for a PIO, public information officer. I'm asking for a supervisor. I'm like, hey, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, this is getting pretty ridiculous, right?
Oh, while you're in jail, you keep asking for the PIO.
And when I'm detained, basically,
Right.
from the moment
From
my
the
cuffs
beginning
are
it
on-
happened, PIOs were being requested.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
Because those are the guys who are going to say, oh, shit.
Nominally, those are the guys that are in charge of being like, yeah, that's probably a bad idea. Maybe don't
Right.
take this all the way, right?
Yeah.
But they insisted on doing the wrong thing over and over and over again.
Do you remember who the PIO was?
There was no PIO
There's no
the whole
PIO
time.
there.
Yeah.
LAPD was not involved with this arrest. This is a UCPD arrest and they had some help with the sheriff with like transport and stuff. But this is a UCLA PD arrest.
So that's why you weren't able to get to a PIO, because there wasn't one.
Yeah, he
Right.
was the
Well,
PIO.
I also was refused to talk to a supervisor or anything. Right?
Could you make a phone call?
Eventually, I was able to make a phone call.
Do you remember a phone number to call?
Oh,
Like your phone is
yeah,
gone, right?
I called my mom.
God bless you.
Happy Mother's Day, by the way.
God bless you. Do you know that Was Not Was song? Hey, Dad, I'm in jail.
I like it here. It's nice. I like it. Hello, Dad. I'm in jail. Hello, Dad. I am in jail.
I'm in jail. It's like the craziest song.
All right, I'll listen to it later.
Yeah.
That was kind of creepy, though.
It's creepier.
All right.
Okay,
but
so
yeah.
you call your mom because you remembered your mom's phone number.
Yeah, so I remember my mom's phone number. Apparently, some other folks that also used to work for Knock LA, they had my emergency contact number, so they had already called my mom. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So I called my mom and I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm in jail. Sorry. I'm in the booking station, and she was like, yeah, I heard. She's like, you doing all right? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's not ideal.
That was the point of the call, just to relieve your mom of any stress?
Pretty much, yeah. And also to, like, kind of, let her know where I was, just in case she didn't know. And also, like, kind of, hey, maybe get in touch with some, press legal stuff.
Okay,
which
good.
Apparently the ball was already rolling, so.
Good.
So then after that, they took me into a room. I think I was in before you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they took me into a room, nominally the interrogation room, right, the questioning room. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, like, what's going on now?
Yeah.
So then, I sit down, and they're like, and they go, so turns out you are an accredited member of the press. And I said, that's what I've been fucking saying for like the last, and I didn't even know how long. I was like 4 hours. Turns out it was more than that. But so then they said they were in fact going to give me back my phone, which was, a concern because I have sources and things like that.
When they say accredited press,
Yeah.
have you registered with the sheriff's department?
No.
So what makes
I've
believe that you're
right?
accredited?
So I've been accredited with NPPA, and also look, like, just that week. Right, I had worked with BBC, Al Jazeera, pretty much every local affiliate.
What were the first letters you said? MPPA?
NPPA,
What's
National
that?
Press Photographers Association.
So you have a card with them?
I had one. Yeah. I think it's lapsed. I got to pay them again.
But still it proves that you
Yeah.
used to be.
But, like, look, the point is, the larger point is at the end of the day, right, regardless of press affiliation, anything like that, right, the central thing is I was just filming.
Yes.
Right, and William was just filming. At the end of the day, because here's the thing. This is what a lot of people don't think about, right? In order to get press credentials, you usually need to prove that you've done previous work, right? Everybody has a first day on the job,
That's right.
right? So how much does press credential really work? At the end of the day, if somebody says they're press and they're not breaking the law, they're press.
Listen,
Right. Right.
Make it simple. LAPD policy is you self-identify as press, you're press. That's as simple as that.
Yes.
It's not even a matter of you declaring it. It's what were you doing at that moment. If you're recording
Right.
any police incident, you were a member of the press at that point. You were reporting.
Yes.
You are collecting information to disseminate to the public, period.
Yes.
So you don't have to self-identify. You just look at the role and the actions at that moment.
William is very mad at me right now, people.
No?
He looks very mad at me right
No,
now.
I'm explaining how it is.
Are you just hungry?
No.
Okay.
You're a press guy. You're supposed to know this.
I hold certain things higher than
So what you're saying is you're just a little privileged class.
no, because when I
Things
was,
are changed now. People who break the news are just regular people.
when I was
I watched Alex Cohen the other day when
Yeah.
she was talking about this, who's a member of the press.
I used to work for her.
And she said specifically, that a lot of stuff that they get now and most of the stuff comes from people who are out there
Yeah.
in the ground. So they are the press now.
Rodney
Especially-
King, to your point, that was an excellent example you made just now about George Floyd, because Rodney King was the same way. The guy that filmed that is just a guy that got a camcorder that week.
Listen,
He wasn't trying to ever be the press. He was like, "What the fuck is this? Oh, I've got a camcorder. Let me
who's the
record
press?
it."
Who's press? Wait, if you film something noteworthy,
Yeah.
the members of the press are going to reach out to you and ask if they can have that
Absolutely.
footage.
So,
Yes.
So
this-
you are an extension of the press at that point.
I want to be really clear. This has become even more important over the last few years because
Yeah.
the reality is
Yeah.
pretty much everybody but wide affiliates cannot afford to send somebody out there anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? So, look, stringing is great, right? But at the end of the day, if you're not getting, ABC has Avengers money, right? So, they can afford to send somebody out there for a little while, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, news has got to come from somewhere. Information has got to come from somewhere. And now that newsrooms are smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, somebody's got to provide.
Yeah.
The
That's
content
what
for
somebody
the
is
news.
doing. Right now, most of the stuff you see out there, I'm telling you, a good chunk of it is coming from stringers.
Yeah.
Stringers or just members of the public.
The only reason I hold it differently is
You haven't explained what you hold differently, though.
journalism from citizen journalism or accidental journalism or whatever you want to call it. Is I came up through blogging. And so I was beaten up a lot verbally about why do you think you're the press? And often I would say, I'm not the fucking press. But if my story is more newsworthy than you, maybe you should work on your fucking game. If I can beat your ass. Because at that point, I did not consider myself the press until I got the job at LAist and then the LA Times. But I was still doing the same fucking shit, which is talking to people and recording it and putting it out there in the world, which you guys can define as journalism if you want. And maybe I might get there at some point. But I think there's some gray
they're
area
capturing information
Yes.
to disseminate to the public.
Yes.
It's different than blogging. Blogging and opinions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They are capturing information that we can then disseminate to the public so people can make informed decisions and so on and so forth.
there. Yes.
That's reporting. That means that person is a member of the press.
I'm willing to go that way with you guys.
No, you're going to have to.
I am.
That's the way the world's
That's
going.
where
either
it's
way,
at,
man.
Tony. I got to tell you.
And look,
I
like,
mean,
me and William don't
this is
entirely
a game
agree
changer.
either,
This
but-
phone,
Yeah.
because that makes everybody the press,
Yeah.
which is actually better for our society.
You know what's funny is I keep hearing this argument. Oh, so everybody with a phone is a journalist now? Okay, sure, why not?
Right.
Like, why is that a bad thing?
right?
Like, no one's been able to clearly explain to me.
It-
And look,
especially-
again, this is coming from
It's just
someone like
it's gatekeeping.
it's gatekeeping. It's nonsense. Look, at the end of the day, right? The last couple of years of my career,
Yeah.
right? I have been lucky enough in some ways to, legitimize myself in a lot of ways, right? Like, I don't think anyone can say Al Jazeera and BBC are, and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Daily Beast, all these people I've worked for. I don't think anyone can say right now that those are not legitimate organizations, right?
Right.
However, early on in my career, I cannot tell you how many times people would roll their eyes. And my thing is this, right? At the end of the day, number one, I'm faster than you, so you might want to treat me better.
Yeah, listen, these guys suck out there, so I don't really want to hear anything about them defining what journalism is.
Right.
We run circles around these guys. I really don't give a fuck about them and what they're in their gatekeeping, right? They're out there just honestly doing a lot of the dirty work for the police department, just repeating statements. They're not actually reporting. They're not actually digging. So I
agree.
could care less what they think.
No, often your friends, the ABC 7s of the world, often only against journalism rules, only print what the cops
No,
told them.
especially ABC 7. Let's make that
They
true.
only print what the
Yeah.
and cops say.
And
in
what Karen Bass
journalism,
says.
it's 3 sources.
Exactly.
And everybody knows that. And yet it's one source all the time. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out the difference between
Listen,
great journalism.
it's getting back to the focus of this. We were arrested. And we
Yeah.
self-identified as press, and they shouldn't have arrested us. Doesn't matter what
or let
scale.
you go after an hour. Like, why 8 hours? Why
Because-
9 hours?
And also, I mean, there's no way that it took them that long to really figure out.
Right.
Well, they were receiving phone calls and emails. When I got called into that room, they said to me after 7 hours that we verified that you're a member of the press. I said, well, been telling you for 7 hours.
Yeah.
She's like, I apologize for that. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And would you like to file a complaint? And I said, no, I'll handle it on my own time. And then I said, where are my phones? I have to pick them up at in Westwood. They said, no, we're going to bring them to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then stuck me back in a holding cell, which I'm a little pissed off about because if I'm released, I'm released.
That's right.
I shouldn't have been held for another half an hour. Well, they just didn't want us walking out of that building to a crowd of 100 people without our phones. That would have been a hell of a look. So
Yeah.
they held us. And as far as I'm concerned, they broke another policy right there.
Because now they know you're an innocent man.
Yeah.
And
I'm
you're still in jail.
Exactly. What, for one purpose, because again,
For luck.
they did not want to release us unless our phones were with us. We walked out of there and they said they let us go, but they're holding our phones. Even if they was there for half an hour later, they would have, the press and everybody else would have ran with that. That's not the look that they wanted.
That's also particularly the nature of what they were accusing people of, which is, conspiracy to commit burglary. There was and continues to be some concern of a warrant for searching the phone.
Right.
Now, I will say this. There's some precedent from several law enforcement agencies in the Los Angeles area for cases where they've searched a journalist's phone. California has quite a few what are called shield laws, things like that, right? Basically, a shield law, and this is really under-explaining it, but essentially, if somebody tells me something or hands me something, it does not matter how it was obtained if I'm using it for the purposes of journalism. So,
Right.
for instance, if you, Tony Pierce,
Yes, sir.
worked for the DMV,
Okay.
and it turns out that the DMV was spying on its citizens through their database, right? Obviously, probably not happening, but who knows?
Right.
Right? And then you gave me evidence that perhaps you lifted from a computer, right?
Okay.
The second that it comes to me, it is not illegal for me to be in possession of that information.
Exactly.
Now, you're still fucked.
Right.
But, right. Which,
But these kids, though, they have their phones right now, the way they're seized, they're trying to tie them together. First off, they've been charged with a misdemeanor, right? Who searches phones over that, right? To try to tie together a conspiracy. But
40
that's what
phones. That's a lot of search warrants.
But that's what they're doing, right? I have a feeling,
Are those phones still seized?
yeah.
Wow.
Not from what I know, things are in the process where I think they'll get them back pretty soon. But there's the concern of the search warrant. And you might not even know about it unless they're charged,
Right.
Well, and a search warrant can also be sealed for a period of time.
unless they're charged.
Let me go back just a little bit, because when they said after 6-7 hours that you're members of the press, you'd be like, you played yourself in the garage when you didn't put us against the wall, where you set us away from the people who are actually protesting. You knew we were journalists then. Otherwise, you would have put us with the other people.
I'm going to say this again. They purposely arrested us because we were documented. It doesn't matter if any press member was there. They were going to get if Walter Cronkite's ghost showed up, he was going to be put in handcuffs.
Ghost handcuffs.
I'm going to tell you, again.
But you don't think that's a good argument to prove to them that they knew that you were journalists? You didn't arrest us with those other people.
Well, yeah,
you
that's what
pushed
we-
us back.
That's what we said from the beginning.
Right.
He came in there after all this went down, he came in there. Gina came in there long after this.
Yeah.
That young girl probably came in there half an hour after all this.
Does Gina have a civil case?
Yeah, because there's illegal detainment, illegal false arrest.
Did she get
illegal
released
search?
after you got released?
So,
I was the first
Sorta.
release. He was released, and then Gina.
actually...
So they made her wait longer.
Wait, did you go after Gina?
So here's the thing. So William was released first, and then they told me I was released. and then they gave me my phone. And then I was like, oh, time to go about my merry way. And then after the jailer and UCPD got in an argument because remember how I said I was fingerprinted like 4 goddamn times?
Yeah.
They told me they had to fingerprint me again because they were so. Because I don't know, man. Maybe I sanded off my fucking.
It doesn't
fingers.
matter at that point.
Right.
If they didn't have, they shouldn't.
Right.
There was no excuse to fingerprint you again.
So then
period.
Gina, I was actually out of the jail before me, but she went to go get some excess property, so she ended up outside after me. But yeah, no, I was just sitting. Literally, I was sitting in a room which is literally in between Freedom and the jail. Like there's this little doorway, right, where it locks on both ends. I was literally standing there
Purgatory.
for what, like 20 minutes?
I
at
couldn't
least.
tell you.
Wow. Okay, William, because I don't think this is going to happen to you again, Sean.
Yes, it will. What is your problem? How many times have you been arrested?
Oh, like 8?
I mean, what are you
You
talking?
have?
What are you talking about here? It happens all the time. Stop saying this.
In our podcast, did you admit to me that you had been arrested before?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
We've been arrested 3 times together.
Oh shit, that's right.
Echo Park.
You're right.
Echo Park was different.
No, it wasn't
Was it?
different.
No, I'll tell you why.
That was one of the biggest things, violations of the against the press.
You know, a third of all press arrests in the United States happened
Yeah.
at Echo Park that year.
Because this doesn't happen outside of LAPD territory?
Apparently not. I mean, apparently not in like large.
Okay, were you truly arrested at Echo Park?
Yeah, dude.
Because like Kate
Yeah, so
wasn't
Kate-
really
He
arrested.
was
Yeah,
the last person released.
Yeah, it was literally the
Really?
last.
I was the
yeah.
third person released. He was the last.
Yeah, those fuckers released me literally last.
You gotta stop with this. The way the cops
I
treat
don't remember your
they
life.
they will come after
You
us
have- you
as
have an
many times
exciting
as they
life.
want to. If they want to stop people from documenting them, they will. Especially if this is a smaller police department that's not normally in the limelight.
Right. So you're going to make money off of this. And give it to me if you don't like the money so much.
I am weighing my legal options.
We're all suing.
Do you think that you getting paid is going to stop them
No.
from doing this?
It's not their money. The lawsuits. When has a lawsuit ever stopped the police department? Come on now. No, it doesn't. It's just money that we're gonna get, but it doesn't change anything.
You don't think it's embarrassing to the LAPD that we're over budget in part because of all the
Are they?
payouts
You think?
that
You
they
think
have
the LAPD is embarrassed? Do you
No,
think?
we are not. We are not over. The LAPD budget is not over. Because
not the
payouts,
LAPD
those payouts
budget.
do not come out of the LAPD
No,
budget.
but what I'm saying is when Kenneth Mejia, who you've been showing a lot of love to lately, when he puts out the expenditures of LA
The LAPD doesn't.
and why we're over
They
budget,
are not embarrassed. If anybody would be a politician who votes for that, why would they care? They don't care about that. They want to. They want to
because
get
at
as
some
much.
point a politician's gonna
You
say
think
we're
you-
not gonna give you a raise because
Okay.
you're already in the
When?
hole $1 million.
When does a politician ever stand up to the LAPD? Name them.
That is true.
Name them.
But don't you, think,
You got a Nithya post over there. When
sure
has
do.
she? When has she stood up to him?
don't you think we're marching that way?
No. What has
I
she
think we're
done?
marching away from that.
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
So
Because
I
it's
want to be clear.
political.
Well, listen, David Ryu, he voted to decrease the LAPD funding.
Gone.
Go on, listen.
So
we don't do that anymore.
Listen,
Now,
listen, this has been a joke of mine for years.
Yeah.
David Ryu has voted to defund the LAPD
Yeah.
more times than Nydia Rahman.
or Hugo Soto.
The answer is
Sotomartino.
one,
Right.
but that is more times than Nydia Rahman has voted
Yeah.
to do so.
All right.
And Hugo,
And Hugo, yeah.
an abolitionist, a police
Well-
abolitionist.
I think calling Hugo a police abolitionist.
Well, that's what he says he is.
well.
So we're gonna hold him to that.
Well, he said
That's what he said early in the campaign.
It doesn't make a difference what he ran
he
on.
said that in 2020. Come on now.
Come on now. If you can't, how do you go from police abolitionist in a couple of years? No. He wrote this on. He has it. Wrote it on a document.
Can you send
in
it to me?
2000. It's online. It's everywhere. It's a
I've never seen it.
He filled it out for the DSA when he got to get the DSA endorsement. He said he's a police abolitionist. They use it against him. Mitch O'Farrell used it against him. Now, I never believed he was a police abolitionist, but my point is he voted to increase the LAPD budget. So if you think that things are improving, show me where. Show me where. They have the largest police budget in history.
Yep.
They're about to get an even larger
bigger
increase.
raise.
So where is this come in at? I don't know. These are feelings.
I have lots of
It's
feelings.
not based on fact.
I am like Drake.
It's not based on fact. Things
So,
are not getting
here's
better.
the thing. I mean, there's-
You're right. I agree with you. It isn't based on fact.
regardless of where you stand on the
Yes.
police budget, all of that, right? I can tell you a few things for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Number one, engagement on pieces that I write specifically about police abuses,
Yes.
way down. Less
Really?
reviews. Yeah, absolutely.
Because people are like, I've already read
Now,
this story.
now, maybe that's because, right, they've already read that story. Maybe not, right?
Yeah.
But noticeably down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look around, right? Does it feel quite the same as 2020 politically to you? To me, it feels like we are to the right of where we were in 2020. Now, what does that mean?
I
Maybe
agree.
we're in the center. Maybe we're on the right. I don't know, but we're certainly not having politicians as friendly to
As
the Black Lives
friendly.
Matter movement,
We're
right?
giving them as much money as they want. We're giving them record funding. Things are way different than they were.
When did Garcetti cut it a little tiny bit?
That was 2020. That was like
and so to your
effectively-
point, we are to the right of that because
we're-
Bass isn't
we're
cutting.
hundreds of millions of dollars increased since then.
Yeah.
During that time, how much accountability have we asked for? How many reforms have we asked for? None. There were some back then. There are none now.
So the only thing that
We have an ex-police chief running our civilian oversight committee. Come on, it's things are way worse.
the only thing that got the former police chief fired was he wanted to investigate the mayor.
No, he didn't want to. He tried to initiate. He literally,
Right.
or he had
wanted to.
He had Shah
Mm-hmm.
start the investigation, and two detectives went against it. I sensed that Al Labrada was involved with this too.
Yeah.
But that's the only he's gone because he got fired. Listen, he's getting $20,000 a month right now too. For
I
the
know.
next few months.
It's a hell of a punishment.
I mean, to be clear, he retired.
No.
I mean,
A second time.
right?
Right.
Listen,
But
no.
I bring it up because of this.
No. Listen, to be clear,
Actually, it's a third time.
to be clear, he stayed on because he said he wanted to stay on for a few more years to have a smooth transition to the next police chief.
Yeah.
There is no next police chief right now.
Right.
We have a temporary one.
Yeah.
He was on his way out a month after that scandal broke, and churches in South Central were calling for his resignation. So he didn't retire.
Right.
Okay, if he wanted to retire because he wanted a smooth transition,
He said retire.
no, I mean he's got
I'm
to
saying
say
that's officially he retired, and
that's what he's going to say.
On paper.
On paper.
saying-
But I bring it up because of this. It seems like the only way to get rid of a chief of police is to have him do something against the mayor personally.
It's the only way to get. They work at the mayor's behest. As
Yeah.
long as they're working for the mayor, if the mayor is not going to expect any accountability, then we're going to be stuck with who we're stuck with.
Do you have because you know the police better than anybody, William? Do you have a preferred police person to be the next chief?
Yeah. I'm not going to say it though.
Because it'll fuck it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a good cop out there, or a slightly less crappy cop out there.
I will say there is a cop out there that internally that probably has a vendetta against the LAPD and wants a little.
Really?
And I'll leave it at that.
That would be exciting. Wouldn't that be exciting, Sean?
I think I know of whom you speak.
People will know what I'm talking about.
So a real difference maker.
No, I'm not a
possibly.
different. No, just somebody. At
He's
least,
just gonna fuck shit up.
just somebody who's pissed off and will
I-
be more likely to go after somebody.
At minimum, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if we can't, if
They're not going to get it though.
no,
That person's not gonna win
no way.
They want to get it, but they're not going to.
There's baggage there.
because she's a woman. It's Alabrado's
No, I'm not saying
target.
I'm not saying who.
I know.
I'm not saying who.
I'm trying to
but
make jokes over here,
I'm
sir.
just saying that they're not. That they're not going to win.
I was gonna call my mom and do a bit, but she's sleeping by now. So
You spend a lot of time with William.
yeah, I spent a lot of time around him. Yeah,
Is this resting bitch face, or is he mad at me? Because when he looks at me like that, I
Mm.
feel like he's mad at me.
I think people think that I'm this guy is always highly wound up and stuff, and I'm actually just mostly just chill.
This is chill face.
Do I look chill? This is how I usually am, right?
That's chill face to you?
Tired.
Fairly chill.
Because I try to pretend like I'm a tough journalist, but I'm actually a sensitive poet. And so I want my guests to be happy with the
Sensitive.
conversation that
Scared?
we had.
He's all scared now. Yeah.
I'm not scared. I want you to like me, William.
This is the same way I'm always am. This is my normal thing.
Okay. That's what I'm asking.
I've seen him way more bad before.
Yeah, if I'm mad, you know I'm mad.
I've seen you mad at cops. I've seen you mad at robots.
Seen that
Oh,
people.
can we talk real quick about
No,
robots?
I don't want to talk about robots. No robots, man. Let's keep it to the cops.
This is what I want to ask you.
He's gonna ask anyway. All right.
I'm gonna ask anyway. This is what journalists do. We ask anyways. I'm about to buy a Tesla. A robot car Tesla.
Yeah.
Is my Tesla a robot?
No, it's a car.
You're okay with that?
Why are you
It's a
gonna buy
car.
a Tesla?
It's cheap right now. And I get drowsy sometimes at night. And it would be great to just say, drive me home, motherfucker.
You're not supposed to do that.
I know, but sometimes I'm in fucking Riverside.
They're
and
charging
I'm
stations
sleepy.
around here.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna show you some videos that's gonna really change your mind. Have you seen the one where they did the testing and they were supposed to they were supposed to go around?
They hit the press?
No, it was the kids. There was like a line of like small little like crash test dummies, and they were all like 4 feet tall. And this Tesla just went straight the fuck through all of them. And that was the moment I went, I'm not buying a Tesla. It's not happening.
Sean Becker Carmichael.
Beckner. Carmichael.
William G. Film the Police. Good. Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you're out of jail. The next time that we see you people in jail, what should we do? Is there anything we should do, or you're just
Yeah,
good?
Call my lawyer.
I'll be honest with you, when we get arrested, people mobilize. So.
Yeah, for the most part.
You're the
Look,
two people that we don't have to worry about.
At
when you
the
get
end of the
arrested.
day, you know, I've been through this before,
Yeah.
right? There's people who know what to do and how to handle it.
Okay.
Just make sure that, you know, they know how to handle it. And they basically make sure that the world knows that I'm in there. And as long as that
Okay.
happens, there's people that always that are good at
Is it
handling
encouraging to know that there's 100 people out there waiting for you?
Yeah.
They were waiting
So should we go out there?
Yeah. I
You
mean,
like
listen.
that?
No, listen. I am embarrassed when they don't come out there for me. I'll be honest with you.
Okay. Because I was thinking about it.
Yeah. No, don't.
Because I've done it once before,
Don't.
and it was
No,
nice.
I agree. I remember.
I got to meet a bunch of people I'd only seen online.
I mean, it was a good. I appreciate the statement that was being sent and stuff. It just, I feel slightly weird, but come out for those kids. Come out for other people. I'll be fine.
I know you'll be fine.
I'm not going to say you should come out for me, but if you do, please bring a pack of smokes.
Yeah, that's all he was. He was
What's
worried.
your brand?
He was worried about cigarettes. He's like, I hope somebody out there
Immediately-
has a cigarette.
Every time I get out of jail, immediately, that's the first thing I want to know.
What's your brand?
Camel Blues.
Blues.
Yeah.
I've never heard of blues before.
So they used to call them Camel Lights, but then Camel, I think they got sued or something. So now they have to
Camel
call them
got
Blue.
sued?
Yeah, I know. Shocker, a tobacco brand got sued.
and they relented.
Yeah, so I mean that's literally the first thing I always want when I got out of jail, or detention or booking, whatever it is, right? Always the first thing that I want is a cigarette and ideally a Red Bull, but Diet Mountain Dew, that works too. Just something with caffeine in it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
All
what
right.
I want.
Well, thank you guys very much. I hope this was enjoyable to you. I'm glad we didn't film this on video.
I know.
It would be a bitch
Yes.
to
All
edit.
right.
Jesus.
Thank
Time is
you.
it.
How great was Sean and Will? You know who we'd have smokes for, just ready when they come out of jail? Our Patreons. When you stoke us, you're saying, Tony, thank you for doing all of this. It's really incredible. I hear you're trying to buy a new car, so here's a down payment. Thank you. Shout out to our Patreons, Nancy Rommelman, Sean Atlow, Matt Mills, Sean Wallace, Greg and Molly, Jamie Taylor, Mark Johnson, Kira Ann, Barney Grinke, Ben Welsh, Jen Adams, Trevor Wilson, Bree Wild, Dougie Gyro, Christina Up North, Robin Carey, Adam Shorn, Ben from Down Under, Chris from the ATX, Gregor, Phil, and Shauna. To be a Patreon, just go to patreon.com/hereinla and give till it hurts. Want to support us, but you don't believe in money? You can still help. Post your favorite episode on your Facebook. Start with this one. Tweet this link on your Twitter, or on Threads, or on your Truth Social. Put it on your damn live journal for all I care, but tell your friends. Tell them how Here in LA is spelled, and it's on Apple Podcasts and Google and even on YouTube. Here in LA is produced by myself, Tony Pierce. Music supervision by Jordan Katz. Songs by Orgone and Jordan Katz. Special thanks to Cindy for creating the logo, Jen for inspiring this, and independent reporters, stringers, bloggers, citizen journalists, and YouTubers everywhere documenting all the fucked up shit happening, as well as the beautiful moments in LA. Thank you, Patriots!